Hello, hello, hello. Yes, from that video clip there, you see that we used to score goals. We don't do that anymore. What's that like? We used to get wins. We don't do that anymore either. We used to get draws. Yeah, that's not happening either, is it?
Just,
Richie,
just
how are
like,
you?
just like I was going to say, just like team pictures in the dressing room after the game. They don't happen anymore today either.
Hey, we used to have five here in this team. That doesn't happen anymore either. Pete, how are you?
Yeah, I'm getting better. I've been there the last 3 or 4 days. But yeah, slowly getting better. But yeah, I was hoping that a result would lift me a little bit more. But yeah, maybe one hope too many.
Yeah, I think hold on to that thought for next weekend. That's everything is on that for next weekend. Let us get into it, lads. Welcome everyone in the chat as well. You'll notice I did change something up. Only subscribers can chat now. So if you want to chat going forward, hit that subscribe button. So let's move on. Let's get to the team news. So this is the team. Changes were Shar out due to concussion. Lascelles in. ASM out. Gordon made his first start. Isaac and Willock on the bench. Dubs is back on the bench as well. And it was a game that saw, and my Man City team didn't load up, but it's a game that saw Miggy and Grealish face off each other for the first time, I think, since that whole little controversy in last summer. But and great to see Pope back as well. But Richie, thoughts on the team?
I think the main, obviously, talk point that we've had over the last week or so has been the front three, and I'll be honest with you. I think it was great. It was great seeing Gordon called the team. I think it was deserved. Well, not necessarily deserved. He's shown flashes since when he's come on, but we haven't really been creating much recently anyway. So something had to change. But I think the biggest disappointment for me was the fact that Callum Wilson was starting up front. That game was crying out for Isak as a start. And obviously we'll get into the game shortly. But I think if you look at the impact that he had when he came on, I think it was, I think it was Isak was second in the game to only, I think it was Grealish for chances on target or sort of chances created. So it was something like that in the space of like 25 minutes. You know what I mean? So it's like, obviously we'll talk about it more, but I think the other concern thing, and I don't know what you boys think on this either, was obviously when club captain Jamal Lascelles started. Obviously, Shaw wasn't in the match day squad, and it came out saying he had a slight concussion because of what happened in the cup final last week. Now, fair enough if he's out because of a concussion, but surely enough, I think we all discussed it in the chat last week when Shaw hit his head last week. He didn't look right straight afterwards. So my concern would be the medical staff. Why aren't they taking him off there? And then if they thought he had a concussion, why was he allowed to play on? I would rather, we discussed that. Was there a chance that the Casemiro goal, he was the man nearest to Casemiro? Was he just not thinking straight? You don't know. Obviously, I know it's all if, but maybe sort of thing. But was it something that possibly could have contributed to the goal? And then obviously having and all the cells isn't as great as Fabien Shaw, but would at least having somebody who's got all the senses with and be a little bit do a little bit better in that situation. We don't know, but I think that was the main concern for me, that the fact that Shaw wasn't in it. Came out, he had a concussion, but how wasn't it dealt with last week? You could see the state, the bump on his head last week. It came out straight away and stuff like that. That would be my main concern. Why wasn't it? You can do in American football and stuff like that. You have concussion protocols and stuff like that. You would get an extra substitution if Shaw went off and stuff like that. So for me, it was a bit concerned on that front, but there you go.
Yeah, I don't think it would have helped us last weekend either way, unless you have
We never know. We never know. We never know.
Pete, your thoughts on the team selection, and I have the City team as well. If anyone wants to look at them again, I'm sick of looking at them. Pete, your thoughts?
Well, the City team was as strong as it always is. Nothing surprised me there. They could have changed that team around with 2 or 3 other players, and it looked just as strong. With the Newcastle team, there's a lot of. I mean, I had Isaac in my away days team to start. I had him to start, and I thought there needed to be a shake-up after the cup final. After the recent results, there needed to be a change of a number of players. So I did expect changes. However, when I saw that Wilson was starting, although a lot of people have gone to, oh, he's one of Eddie Howe's boys, blah, 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 I could actually see the reason why he's played. He's gone with Wilson. And I said it to the Geordies Down South boys. I said, the selection of Wilson or Isak will tell you what type of performance he's looking for. And what he was looking for is not a team to go all-out attack at Man City, but it was a team that was going to be a little bit more cautious in their play. And although Wilson, and we'll get to Wilson, wasn't as good as he should be in front of goal, I actually thought that there was times in his build-up play he actually really did help the team. And there was things that he did in his game, although it weren't his best performance, things that he did in his game that Isak can't. And so I understood why he made the decision. Would I have done it? No, I wouldn't have. I was surprised to see Almiron on the team. And look, we'll talk about Almiron separately. I was surprised to see him start. And I was surprised to see ASM on the bench. But equally, I could see why that was the case as well, because it actually came to fruition in the way in which we set up and in the way in which we played. It was nice to see Gordon in. Like I said, we needed a shake-up. Gordon isn't going to sit on the bench all day. He's going to play football. And what perfect way to play him in a game away from home against Man City to see what he's up against. Eddie Howard bigged him up in the presser. Said he's been training hard behind the scenes. He had to build up his fitness because it wasn't Newcastle ready in terms of his fitness. And then you've got the Fabian Schär situation. Now, Richie's made a point about the cup final and why the medical staff didn't do their job, blah, blah, blah. What I would argue with that is that Fabian Schär would have played a part in that. Now, you're asking Fabian Schär in the first half of the cup final to come off with concussion. He's going to say whatever he needs to say in order to stay on the pitch, because for all we know, and for all he knows, it might be his last cup final he plays as a professional footballer. And he didn't want to go out like that. Now, did it affect his performance? Probably. Should they have brought him off? Definitely. But the player plays a huge part in it. And I think that's the reason why he didn't come off the pitch. But obviously, they've followed protocol after it, and that he hasn't played today. So I fully expect him to be starting in the game against Wolves at the weekend.
Pete, can I just come back on that? Because obviously, I agree. I know where you're coming from. Schär's going to say he wants to play on. He's in the final and stuff. I just want to come out and stuff. But I'll go back to something that happened to me as a grassroots coach. One of my kids had a severe head injury. And of course, same situation. Didn't want to come off. His parents on the sideline next to him as well, saying, look, he's all right to continue. But the problem is, if that goes on any further and then something happens to him, who's then to blame? Obviously, Schär's not going to be to blame because obviously he's saying he can go on. The medical staff are trained for a certain reason to make a call like it, whether the player likes it or not. You've got to take the saving. I took that kid off and I made him sit out the rest of that day because it was during a tournament. The parents went off it with us and stuff like that. And I said to them, look, it's my responsibility, the welfare of your child. It's okay you turn around and telling me that he's okay to play on such because he said it. But if something wasn't to happen, and he carries on a game and then gets to the head of yours, doesn't look right or whatever, it's me that gets blamed and it'll be getting me that gets sued on behalf of the club or whatever. For me, the medical staff have to blow some balls off, so to speak, and say, look, you're not right. You're coming off. That's my point of view. That's going off an experience I had myself. So,
yeah, no, I agree. It is the medical staff's responsibility. But I'll go back to the point that Eddie Howe said it was a very mild concussion. And when it's a very mild concussion, it's not as easy to diagnose straight off. I'm not supporting the medical staff here in any way, shape, or form. But what I'm saying is that if you've got a player that's saying that he's fine and he's showing the signs that he's absolutely fine and he's ready to play, and there's no telltale signs immediately showing that he's suffering from concussion, they have no choice but to kind of let him play. If there was obvious signs that he's struggling to walk, if he goes down again and he's suffering constantly, then you put him off. But the fact is that his performance may have not been great after that, but he didn't look at any point where he wasn't to the point where he was going to like pass out, or he was going to faint, or he was going to be showing those massive signs that he's really, really struggling. And look, I think Newcastle have checked him out after the game, and they've gone very, very cautious. And I think whatever the medical staff didn't do on the day, they have redeemed themselves to a point by making the decision after the game. Because let's face it, he didn't go off with a concussion, so ultimately they could have said it's not a concussion, and he could have been in the team this week. But what they've done, they've chosen to do the right thing in the end by not allowing him to play this weekend to ensure that he's ready for next weekend. So although they didn't follow protocol to a T in the final, they've shown it after the game and beyond, to the point where he'll have had a 4 weeks recovery and he'll be back for Wolves. So, like I say, it's down to interpretation. It's down to lots of different factors that we don't know about, because we don't know what the discussions were with the player on the pitch. We don't know what the discussions were with regards to the medical team. Someone said the decision stops with Howe. PDK just said that, and you're absolutely right. But we don't know what those discussions were. It's all an opinion from our point of view. But I would say the player has had a huge say in staying on the pitch in the cup final, which is why he hasn't been taken off. Look, the actions taken after the game have been dealt with in the way in which they should have. So therefore, he's got the appropriate rest. They've given the chance for him to be properly checked out. So therefore, they've done the right thing after the game and beyond to ensure that he's in a safe place when he hopefully starts against Wolves.
And all in all, it's probably, this is a bit of a free hit. Like, no one was really expecting us to win, and we all were hoping for something out of this game. But look at it, the more important games coming are Wolves and Forest, and what our season is kind of the final result of our season is kind of hinging on these next two games coming up, and he could have done another break anyway, maybe. Right, let's get into it. Just a very quick run through first half. I'll just run through the first half, then I'll come back and get your opinions on it. Lascelles header, Bruno put early on. Bruno put a good through ball through to Gordon as well. Came off his wrong foot. It was unlucky. In all, the early powers from Newcastle, they were holding their own. Then on the 40th minute, Foden was through the Newcastle defence. Came off Botman's leg, and goal for City. For Newcastle, then everything seemed a bit slow. They all seemed to be closed down. There was a Wilson chance as well in that first half. I know I wrote down here, take a shot. They're always kind of looking for this perfect opportunity to shoot. So sometimes you just need to test the keeper and take a shot. We're very reluctant to do that at times, and we said it in the match I'm not going to talk about, where Murphy came on and took a shot and he just kind of swerved off in that cup final. But anyway, both sides kind of giving away the ball at different times as well. Both sides kind of guilty of that. So City weren't on full form. They were potentially there for the taking if we were on full song today. But halftime brought us to 1-0 down, but still in the game and still all to play for. Richie, your thoughts on the first half?
It was, do you know what? We started pretty similar to how we did against Liverpool. We started off quite that first 10 minutes. We were really good, and I don't know, Man City seemed a little bit rattled. They seemed to be off it a little bit, and it was, stuff like the way Edison was playing with his feet. He didn't look himself. There was a lot of their ball that were giving the balls away and stuff like that. And it was sweet because after that 10 minutes, it seemed to be like a bit contagious, and Man City got over that, and we didn't for the rest of the game. Obviously, we're going out of depth, but you look at the goal, the first goal for Foden. We were talking in our chat when it was going on, and Martin made a good summary saying that he shouldn't be really ghosting past four players like that. Someone's going to be put a challenge in. For me, it's pretty much the same as well. So I think you've got to take one for the team before you even get to the box. Also, when he gets to the box, I think it was, I don't know if anybody watched the analysis at halftime and after the game as well, but Rio Ferdinand made a good point that Botman, he made that sliding tackle that deflected it and that went past Pope, but perhaps he didn't react quick enough at the right time. He should have come across to Foden earlier rather than as like a last ditch sort of thing. But he did say, obviously, he's a good centre half himself. Ferdinand, he played at international level, played one of the biggest teams in England, and he was saying the problem is if you know that the person behind you is Mark Haaland, who's been the most prolific striker in the Premier League this year, you've always got the back of your head. Has he got him, or do we need to leave him? So he was sort of on edge. His decision making was a little bit off today, and it sort of comes in with the second goal, which we'll go on to later on, when he reacted to go towards Haaland, and Haaland was able to just get that little flick to Bernardo Silva. Then he had that yard to just put the ball the other side of Pope. So on that sort of front, a little bit disappointing. I think both goals could have been, defensively. I think that's probably where we was bad in a way. But I think after that there was a little bit of a reaction. I think, and obviously we always know when you play in Man City, your chances are going to be few and far between, and you've got to take them when they come to you. And when you've technically, people might disagree with us on this or not, but when you've got an England striker and the ball comes in from the right hand side, which to be fair, all of us are unloaded have said, when the ball comes in from the right hand side, this is where Wilson thrives on. When those balls are put in the right area, once again, we can't argue for him. That ball was a spot on ball that came in for the first one. But when you're out of form, what could you say? That should be bread and butter, as they used to always say for a striker. And number 9, we're talking what you in between the penalty spot and the 6-yard box, centre of the goal. You should be. It's a tap in for me. You should be scoring that all day long. And I think once that went out, I sort of thought it's not going to be our day today. And I said at half time, I think the one thing was, with it being 1-0 at half time, we were lucky that we were still in it, because Man City could have killed other teams off by half time. And luckily we were still in it. I was just hoping for an improvement in the second half.
Cheers, Richie. Pete, your thoughts on the first half?
I think there's a reasonable argument to suggest that we could have been going in at 3-1 up at half time, and the chances are there for all to be seen. I thought it was a great bit of play. I think, if I'm right, I think it was the ball through from Bruno to Anthony Gordon. Look, it happens. They're kind of like you get your standing foot right, and it touches the ball, it takes the ball away, and it was a bit of a missed kick. It was unlucky, but it was the wrong goal. And there's a good argument to suggest he would have worked the keeper with that position. You've then got the goal. Obviously, the goal that we concede. Rich has already touched on that on the defensive side in the build-up. Let's face it, he just shouldn't have got through. He just shouldn't have got through. It's as simple as that. I don't blame Botman for it. At all. I want my defender to be putting his body in front of the line to block the ball. It's just unlucky that last weekend and this weekend the ball's ricocheted off him and ended up in the back of the net. Because I do think that the angle that they showed behind the goal, that if they allowed, if the shot had just been a shot without any deflection, Pope would have saved it. And that's the kind of the thing. Oh, for God's sake, because it's one of those things. You want your defender to block the ball, but you also want your best opportunity to save the ball. And I just think we could. We just need a little. I tweeted that earlier. I just said we just need a little bit of luck to go our way, and that's the luck that's not going our way at the moment. Those little deflections that are going in. Hopefully, they happen towards the other end of the pitch. But what I'm annoyed about is that we kept playing well. I'm not annoyed about that, but we kept playing well, and then we created literally a minute later after they scored the first goal. The ball breaks, lovely bit of football, nice little passes. I think just before that chance, they to emphasise Man City's dominance, I think they had like 147 passes and we had 91. And they put it up on the screen on BT Sport just to kind of make the point that Man City is this all great and fantastic team. But what they didn't realise, that as they had that up on the screen, we put 20 passes together without them even touching the ball. And I was just thinking, oh no, we're on over 100 passes right now. And in the back of that, we created the chance. Sean Longstaff's lack of ability to get that ball on target shows you everything you need to know about Newcastle in attacking positions right now. There's a lack of quality, there is hesitation, and there's nervousness in front of goal. And that's for everybody. And that chance, that opportunity, if that comes to Sean Longstaff before the World Cup, if that falls to Sean Longstaff away at Leicester, we put that in the net and we score a goal. And that just epitomises everything about Newcastle in attacking areas. It worked the ball well. The ball falls to him kindly. He just needs to hit it. The fact that he takes one touch, then a second before he even shoots, just allows Ake to get back in. He should have never got back in. Good block. He should have never got back in. And I just thought that just typified Newcastle in attacking areas. Just not even today, but just of late. And then you get another well-worked opportunity. And look, I can sit here and hammer Callum Wilson. I'm a striker myself. It's happened to me when I've been down in form and confidence. It happens. But it's still poor. And when you're desperate for a goal, you need your striker to take those opportunities. And it goes back to the point, when you've got a player that's not playing well, sometimes you keep playing them. And I think Eddie Howe kept playing Callum Wilson by giving him the cup final berth. But he has to be on the bench now. Because what you need to do now is, now you've given him a chance to try and play through that bad moment, you need to say, look, enough's enough. You need to come out of the team. And he needs to see Alexander Isak playing to try and ignite a little bit of a fire in his belly again, to get back in front of goal and to do the business again. I think he needs that. I think if you're constantly being told that you're in the team regardless and you're playing week in, week out, you're not going to get that fire in your belly. You're not going to get that determination. Like, if anyone watches a football podcast, and they talk about, and they kind of have a laugh and joke with Mikel Antonio, the fact that he was on the bench and Danny Ings scores 2 goals. The one thing he talked about is that he was pissed off that he was dropped, and he had the fire in his belly, and he came on against Forest and he got his goal. That's what we want from Callum Wilson. Callum Wilson needs to ride the bench now, because equally, and we'll get on to Alexander Isak in the second half, what you found when Isak came onto the pitch, he had fire in his belly, and it showed in his performance. And that's all I'll say on that. But Callum Wilson needs to be dropped. And it's hard for me to say that because I really like him. I like him as a striker, but he's not playing well at the moment. And he should have done better. But what I will say is that he did cause lots of disruption for the centre-backs. But going back to those 3 points and the half, we could have been 3-1 up. And that just shows you where we are as Newcastle United at the moment.
That would be glass half full if it threw it up. But let me see. Yeah, I can't disagree with you. I would have had Isak down to start today, and there's something wrong if Isak isn't starting against Wolves next week. Right. Let's move on. Second half. J7 got a nearly yellow. I've no times on any of this. So that means he is out of the Wolves and Forest upcoming games. But Megan Willock will come back in. Subs on the 62nd minute. Isak on for Wilson. Willock on for Longstaff, ASM on for Gordon. Newcastle then immediately upped their game after that. They had 2 chances in the same minute. The 63rd minute, a great chance for J7 when the ball was put across from Isak, I think. And then Isak had a chance himself pretty much straight after that. Then you're thinking, yes, we can get into this now. We're still in it. We've made the changes. Of course, Pep brought on Bernardo Silva, and he scored then on the 66th minute. A few more yellow cards for us after that. Byrne yellow, Bruno yellow, Miggy come off, Murphy was on, Lascelles got a card towards the end. Target come on as well. So good to see a Target come out and getting some minutes. A change I'd like to see. Cheers, Darren, as well for the donation to the channel. I'd like to see Target start next week, and obviously Isak. And I'd even drop Miggy and bring on ASM. But we'll probably get into that later on. That's pretty much it on the second half. Pete, I'll go to you first on the second half and switch it on this time, then go to Richie. So, your thoughts for the overall results or time in the second half?
Yeah, second half, you know, I've got to be honest, for long parts of that second half, Man City didn't do anything. And maybe it's because they were 1-0 up and they were comfortable, but they didn't really cause an issue. Like, up until the second goal, they literally didn't cause a problem. I was thinking, like, they've dropped off here. And there was a point in which we really started to get things ticking. We started to get things moving. I think it was probably around the time that the 3 subs came on, when Isak, Maxi, and Willock came on. There was like a little, I say a little. Yeah. There was a big jump in effort and urgency, and we needed it. It was finally the subs at the right time. They were the right subs at the right time. Those 3 big players coming on the pitch, and they made a difference. But when you're up, you have to take chances. And we didn't. That ball from Willock on the right-hand side, we've been crying out for a ball like that on the right-hand side for God knows how long. But you know what? Because the strikers and the attackers are not expecting a ball like that, nobody made the run. And it was kind of a lost ball in the end. But it was, some of the delivery in the second half was outstanding. But what I don't accept, and this is over the course of the game, is the amount of times we cheaply and unnecessarily give the ball away. Yeah. It wound me up. It was the biggest thing that wound me up about our performance today. Is that, and there were 1 or 2 players that really stood out with this, but you could go across the whole team. The team were just needlessly giving the ball away time and time and time again, and it was like Man City were willing to give us the ball back. How many times in the first 5 or 10 minutes did Man City needlessly put the ball out of play or give the ball back to us? They were just as bad. So we should be taking confidence from that, but we're just giving them the ball back because we were just panicking on the ball. And that's not like us. We haven't been like that this season. And it was almost like we were feeling inferior to Man City. We shouldn't be. We weren't that way at St. James's Park. We shouldn't have been that way today. And that was the one thing that disappointed me. The 2 players that gave the ball away from me more than anybody, Kieran Trippier and Sean Longstaff. Both of them continually gave the ball away more than any other player. I think Joe Linton might have been not far behind him, behind either of those. And it wasn't good enough. And there were areas in which we got punished off the back of it, including Trippier needlessly giving the ball away, which then allowed them to score the second goal. Awful, awful, awful management of the ball. And you expect that from your vice captain, who's normally wearing the armband week in, week out. He was not good today at all.
Richie.
Yeah, Jordan Team for life, exactly. Trippier was the main culprit. I saw something online that mentioned around 20 times he gave the ball away. I could be wrong. Someone put that out there. I wouldn't be surprised if it was 20 times in which he needed to give the ball away. Really, really poor. His worst performance for Newcastle United for me.
Richie, your thoughts in the second half?
Well, for a start, I've got to concur with what Peter just said. I thought our ability to hold on the ball today was abysmal. It was just like there was nerves completely through the team. I don't know what was going on. We've got so many players who are comfortable on the ball. Even Botman, I thought there was a few times when he looked a bit nervy with the ball as well. And we've always said about progressive passes and playing through the line sort of thing to the midfield or the midfield to forward. We did, for some reason, we weren't trying them as much as we have done through the season. I don't know if it's just it's a confidence thing that's running through the whole of the team, and because we're on this little bit of a blip, that will hopefully, touch wood, going to be over now when it gets to next week. But it's like Peter, that the ball for that Willock put in when he came on. Willock, you can tell, was full of running. He was eager to get going. To be fair, which was the same for the 2 lads who came on at the same time in ASM and Isak as well. We obviously briefly touched on Isak, the stats earlier on in the show. But it's just, you've got to look after the ball better. You have to. It doesn't necessarily mean just because you play in Man City, you've got to look after the ball. You've got to look after the ball at any level in the Premier League, because any team can punish you on the day. Obviously, Newcastle aren't taking the chances to punish teams a minute, but that doesn't necessarily mean to say that if you're playing someone like Bournemouth or Leicester or Leeds or anyone that's down the bottom end of that table fighting for their life, that, all it takes is one mistake, and if they take that chance and you lose 1-0, especially if you're not scoring at the other end, and people can turn around and say, you look at the West Ham. West Ham had one attempt when they came up to St James's, and they scored off it. That was it. They had nothing for that game. You pretty much that you can look at probably the same as when you go to Bournemouth. They didn't really have any chances, but they scored one, and then we had to find one from somewhere with our only bit of decent play on the day, and that's been our last goals first in the Premier League. So, we haven't scored since. Okay, you can look. You've played Liverpool, Man United, and Man City in that time, so people can turn around and go, "Oh yeah, you haven't scored in 3 games." But then look at the 3. Man United are on a crest of a wave at the minute. The way we were at the start of the season, everything seems to be going for them at the minute. They're on a roll now ever since Ronaldo left the club. Liverpool, little bit of turn of fortune. I'm hoping that'll come to a bump tomorrow, and Man United, because of that, I just mentioned about the crest with, they can do Liverpool at Anfield tomorrow and do us a favour, and that means a free hit which could have been punished by a Spurs win today, a Liverpool win tomorrow. Going our way for a change, for some results going along with it. So it's like you start to think, we've we lost to Man City, but then Spurs lost to Wolves. So the next week we've got Wolves.
Hold that thought, Richie. Hold that thought.
I agree. So we've got to change it. As me and Pete said the other day when we did away days, and Pete did his line up and stuff like that. And I know we both had the same thoughts about how they were going to pick the front 3. And when you were going, I think you put Willock in your team, didn't you? And I said, well, to be fair, I'll be happy with Willock or Longstaff, because you'll get the legs. And then if you're in the game still, which to be fair, when they came on, we were still in the game, weren't they, Pete? Do you know what I mean? We were still in the game, and they were like, we could have still got something from the game. I don't know whether Pete's froze there or he's just like what I said, but I think his internet's gone again. But yeah, it's I mentioned about when you make the substitutions, if you're still in it, then you can bring the people to keep that press going and stuff like that. I was just surprised the way it went round. I still believe we should have made those changes. They mentioned about Isak and ASM being working and training, staying behind and trying to get a chemistry and stuff like that. I think we just need to see them more together. And I probably would have liked to have seen Gordon start and change the complete front 3. Because obviously, as Pete mentioned, that ball by Willock for Joe Linton, who we know he's not a natural finisher. Do you know what I mean? He likes the ball in front of him and stuff like that. But, I think me old Nan could have probably scored that one for Joe Linton missed today. All you got to do is literally get a touch on the ball, and it's a touch on it. That's probably it. Let it hit. Do what Salah did the other day. Against Wolves for Liverpool, just let the ball hit you, let it hit you, and make get it on target. And that was you're probably going to be back in the game there. But we're sitting here and it's exactly the same. Do you know what I mean? So
it wasn't to be, Richie. It wasn't to be today. It wasn't our day. But our big games coming up where it should be our day. Or else, we are steadily pedaling backwards otherwise. Right, Pete will hopefully be back in a second as well, but we start into the ratings. First up, Popey. For me, I don't blame him for anything, really. He got a nice long throw out at one stage to start a move as well. But I give him 6.5.
I don't go for your half, so your 0.2, your pies or anything like that. No.
Go on, Richie.
No. I'm just going to give him a 6. He didn't really have much. Someone put in the chat 3 shots on target. One was a deflected one, which didn't have much of a chance with. You look at the Bernardo Silva goal, which was well placed, and the other one was on target. So the shots, but both the ones that went, you didn't have a chance with. And after that, he looked as solid as you want from an England goalkeeper. He has been all season. He still conceded the least goals in the Premier League this season. So for me, he didn't really have much to do. So 6.
Pete, you're just back at the right time. Popey, what rating are you giving him today?
I know what you guys have said. He made a couple of saves, couple of decent saves, but he hasn't really had anything to do in the game, which it just frustrates you even more. It's not like he's been pelted 20 minutes. You could kind of, turn around and go, you know what, he got a 7 or an 8 because he made 10 fantastic saves. He's literally had nothing to do. So probably give him 6.5 to be fair.
That's a good number. I like that number.
You guys give him. I've gone for these halves. You've gone for these halves now. I blame you. I would have just stuck to that whole numbers.
Yeah, blame me. I'll take it. I'll take it because it was back in the days we were doing really well. So I'll take that compliment from them. I'm not taking them now though. Right, we'll go for trips. Trips, I'm giving a 6. I think you hit the nail on the head there earlier when you were describing it. But yeah, trips to give a 6. Richie.
Can't believe I'm actually going to say this. I'm going to give Trippier a 5. I think it's probably his worst game for Newcastle. He just, I don't know. The amount of times, obviously, Pete said he saw a stat about he possibly could have given away 20 times today. But not just that. You've got to look at he takes all our set pieces, and his set pieces are appalling at the minute as well. The amount of times he took a corner, didn't wasn't beating something which we used to go on a lot about before the takeover. You've got to beat the first man, and sometimes it was just, some of the free kicks you were talking about. He literally just floated them towards the back stick. It gives you, goalkeepers plenty of time to come out and make a challenge on it, or defend it ball. He's not even whipping the balls anymore. Or if he does, he's putting them in too low. Mike Chambers just put their trips looks tired, like so many. And it is, yeah, but to me, 5.
Yeah, anywhere around there. To be fair, in my mind, I had 4.5. So I'll probably just stick with that. That's probably my lowest rating, but I think he was really, really poor today. His worst performance for Newcastle. He consistently gave the ball away, and I'll probably give him a 5.5 just on his giving the ball away. But his poor deliveries, time after time. Honestly, guys, the amount of set pieces we get in a game is crazy. It's crazy. The amount of free kicks, the amount of corners, the amount of dangerous opportunities that we get. Every ball's the same. I don't know how many free kicks we get in and around the halfway line that we just pump in the same direction, the same line, to the same 2 players. It's either Burn or Botman that are both heavily marked, and they never win the ball. And it's like, just please, just do something different. Just give me something different. Just work the ball short, or just aim for a different player. Like, we need something different. We'll probably get onto this, but we need an alternative. Target was an alternative for us. Taking set pieces, corners, free kicks. He was an alternative. Why? Because he's a left-footed player, and he gives us a different dimension. We need a different dimension, because I almost feel like teams have sussed us out with what he's going to do. And it's so frustrating. So to mixture, his ability to give the ball away all the time, his positioning was poor for long parts of the game, and poor delivery. He gets my lowest mark today, so I'll stick with the 4.5 that I had in my mind anyway.
Pete, just because you said about obviously we both said there's a few people said he's too complacent and stuff like that. Do you think he's complacent because he's got no competition for his spot?
He's Ashby.
Nah, I've said it before, Daz. I don't think we see Ashby until pre-season. He's barely kicked a ball for West Ham. And you look at what we've done with Gordon, and Gordon's played football this season, but he wasn't really getting played too much before we signed him, and we've kind of brought him in like gradually. I don't think we'll see him unless we're forced to. I think MCINEW will still play ahead of him, but I don't think there's an element of complacency. I agree there's probably an element of tiredness that's crept into his game, but I think at times he's ran out of ideas. I think he's ran out of ideas of what we do in that position. You've got to remember, we have exhausted that right-hand side over the course of this season. That Trippier, Miguel Almiron link-up, it has been exhausted heavily. So teams will be going out of their way to try and exploit that and to try and stop that from happening. Now, when you've got teams that eventually do that, you've got to think of other ways in which you're going to be relevant in the game and how you're going to kind of open up and play differently. And we're at a point right now, I just think he's ran out of ideas. I think he just doesn't know what to do next. He doesn't know what the right pass is, what the next move is. I really do think that he's kind of lost in ideas. And I don't think it's all his fault. I think other players around him aren't playing well either. We'll talk about Miguel Almiron in a second, being case in point. But other players aren't playing well around him either. And I think that feeds into it. So there's a lot of factors with Trippier. But that performance today, that was an individually poor performance.
Yeah, it does. Make a note of the rest, because obviously there's some other things that are coming through in the chat, and we can, develop on that a bit further, but we'll do it after we've done the ratings.
Right, noted, Richie. Right. Just moving on. So, I do agree with what you were saying there, Pete, on lack of ideas. Really, people, clubs, teams we come up against, they know what we're going to do. It's been a pattern, and it's become a bit way too predictable, and the bigger teams will have snuffed that out. Maybe the lesser teams mightn't be able to cope with it. They'll know it's coming, but they wouldn't be able to cope with it. But let's move on. We'll go to Jamal Lascelles, who came in today, back in for Shar, and he did well. A different player than I remember in some senses. He was more direct. He wasn't just looking to go back to the keeper back in the Bruce days. Yeah, and when he went forward, he set up forward for a while and only came back when he needed to as well. So I just noticed that about him as well. But for me to the Cells, I am giving him a 7. I'm giving him my man the match rating for the day. He had an aerial threat, provided an aerial threat, and something, and he did put a great ball across early in the match for someone else to knock in, but no one there. But and then thinking outside the box, Pete, I think you said someone come up with a genius idea. I think maybe this is the best place to stick this in as well. And I just need a full screen for a second, Richie, because this idea here. Anyone go for this idea? There's calls on Facebook for I'll let people to read this, for Eddie Howe to be out and Jamal Lascelles to come in as player manager. And anyone haven't any of that?
I think you're asking the wrong people on loaning guys.
I think I am, but that is absolutely crazy. Take a look at that, people. I'll leave that on screen while you're giving us your rating for Lascelles, Richie.
I've got to say he was probably one of our better players today. I must admit, and I don't know if it's just Lascelles, full stop. But whenever he gets the ball, we're playing out, I always get nervous. Full stop. That's just because I know how bad he is playing the ball out from the back. So I still had that throughout the game. However, because obviously we know he likes to put his aura in, sort of thing. And I think that battle that he had with Haaland, I think it brought the best out of him a little bit. He thrived on having that physicality with him. And I think that one was I'm sure it was in the first half where he had that one-on-one where he was able to get the ball back through the Pope just by out muscling Haaland. And he sort of fed off that, and it made him a lot more confident, and that he thought, do you know what, I can do this today. There's other centre halves who are bigger than him, who as in height wise, wider than him, stronger physically, but he was just up for it for today. I think he wanted to show that he hasn't been in the team for that long. It was only his second start of the season for us in the Premier League. He wanted to show why he's still a club captain, why he's still a voice in the dressing room, why people will still respect him. And I think that he showed that today. I've got to say, do you know what? I'll give him a 7. I've got a feeling I should be taking 1 off him though, mainly just because of the incident that happened at the very, very right at the end of the game when Haaland was taking the piss in the corner with the corner flag. Now, I don't know if anybody else saw it, but when he stood on Maxi's foot. And Maxi
went on the ground, yeah.
Maxi went down, and you could see, he put all his weight through his foot when he was going backwards, and Maxi went down, and he turned to Maxi and went, "Get the fuck up, man!" You've just stood on his foot, man, and he's telling him to get. I just thought
again, Elise.
Yeah. No, I'd probably say he's probably one of our better players today.
Right. So what? So 7. So
Yeah,
7.
yeah,
Two,
7,
two
yeah.
7. Pete, Lascelles.
Yeah, I thought he probably maybe just shaded it as our best player today, in my opinion. Not often do we say that, but Richard just said he's made 2 starts in the Premier League. One was at Anfield and the other was at Etihad. And both games, I think he's had stormers. I think he played very well in both games. But yeah, I have to say, to be fair, I don't think our centre backs, either of them, had bad games, if I'm honest. But I think Lascelles is probably elevated more because of the way in which he handled Haaland. I don't think Haaland has been physically dominated as much as what he was today. Not just from a physical strength to strength, shoulder to shoulder point of view, but Lascelles for long parts matched him with pace. And that's not something that you can accustom any centre back with Haaland, because he's rapid. But normally he likes to get in and behind, and he was making run after run, particularly in the first half, to get in and behind. Lascelles had him matched every single time. And Richard talked about the shoulders to keep him out of the way, the physicality to stop him getting on the ball, to let Pope collect the ball, or to deal with the situation. And there was, and 1 or 2 in the chat have mentioned it, and quite rightly, there was a real aggression to his play overall today. And it was really, really good to see, because let's be honest, the reaction to when Lascelles was starting wasn't positive. There was a lot of negativity about it, but you can't argue that he played very well and was deserving of some positive feedback. He really led by example as a captain. And that's exactly what you want on the pitch. I think I'll probably give him a 7.5. I thought he played well. The centre-back positions were not where we lost the game today. And, it's harsh on those 2 in particular, so Lascelles and Botman, the fact that they were on losing teams, because I thought they did their individual jobs very well. And collectively as a pairing, I thought they were good.
Oh, fair enough. We move to Botman. I don't blame him for the goal so much. Just unlucky with the deflection again, the second game in a row. But I gave him a 6.75 for Botman.
Yeah, I'll probably give him a 6. I think Lascelles played slightly better than the other centre back, but as you said, I don't really blame him for the goals. I think it's probably more down to the fact that he's pretty much played all of his games with Shaw as his partner. So he's playing against probably the best team in the Premier League, with someone he's new to as a partner that haven't been able to build up that chemistry that him and Shaw got. They don't know, what he's going to do. Is he going to come forward? And I think that's probably what Rio Ferdinand was slightly possibly getting at when he was thinking about, he's got Haaland behind him. Should he be helping them out or not? And I think that's possibly the uncertainty of just not playing with Lascelles on a week-to-week basis. If he was playing with Shaw, you might have seen him be able to get across to Foden slightly quicker and block the shot full stop rather than getting the slight deflection. But at the end of the day, as Pete said, you still want to make the challenge. Then he tried everything to still get there. And obviously, it just took that tiny little bit of half a yard for Bernardo Silva to get the second. But at the same time, he was still trying to go at the ball and defend his goal. And that's what you want from your defenders. You're not always going to get it right, because obviously you haven't got eyes in the back of your head to see where, who is such and such covering a run from somewhere else or whatever, or sometimes you can't do that. You've got to hope that the person who's playing either side of you is the right distance away from you as well. Someone else you could turn around and say, could Bernard be closer to Botman to come across to help cover the Silva shot? There's loads of if buts maybe sort of thing, but for me, I'd say you still want him to go out there and make the effort to try and put his body on the line, which he always does every single game. And I think the only reason why I marked him down was because I just think there was a few times where he gave the ball away, he was a little bit unsettled. And I don't know if that's just because of the press around him. But to be fair, I think Byrne didn't have a very good game, which will probably move on to right next after this. And I don't know whether that slightly rubbed off on him, having Burn not playing very well on the one side of him, and having a new partner on the other side of him.
That's fair enough. Pete.
Yeah, I'd go Botman 6.5. I thought as a pairing, him and Lascelles played well. I don't think he had a poor game. I think Fox is put in there. He had a poor game and put him alongside the blame for the first goal. Botman wasn't to blame for the first goal. The midfield were to blame for the first goal for allowing Foden to get into the box. They should not have allowed him to get into. There was space in the middle, and to be fair, BT Sport played it back. There was space in that middle, but I'll argue that if Botman goes to secure that space, Haaland's free in the box. So what it takes is a little cut back to Haaland, and it's 1-0 anyway. So, Haaland, his prime position is to hold his ground and defend the attacker, because he's got 3-4 players in front of him that should be stopping the ball from getting through. So I don't blame Botman for that. And actually, he still managed to get his body in front of the ball, which unfortunately eventually led to the ball getting into the net. But I would say, from a defensive point of view, handling Haaland, he was good. He didn't have to handle Haaland as much as Lascelles did. Lascelles did the better job in dealing with him and keeping him quiet, but Botman went about his business really well. The reason why, for me, he didn't get his mark or his score up as high as Lascelles is because, and I can't even believe I'm saying this, is that Lascelles was better on the ball.
I know. It's like Twilight Zone.
but this actually feeds into Lascelles a little bit, because Lascelles did what any player should do that has limitations, is play within their limits and play to what they know their strengths are. So Lascelles got the ball, got out of his feet quite quickly. He didn't get dilly-dally on the ball. He didn't dwell on it. He just got the ball out of his system because he knows he's not great on the ball. The problem that Botman has is that Botman is programmed to be good on the ball. So he's programmed to keep the ball in possession and keep things moving. And there was someone at the chat, Keity, put did well at times, but needs to learn that Rosie is sometimes a better option. And you're right, sometimes Rosie is a better option. But when you're a ball-playing centre-back, Rosie is not in your mindset. Your mindset is to continually play football. And I don't want Botman to become a Rosie-type defender. That's in Lascelles. I don't mind Lascelles doing that because he's not great on the ball. But Botman is good on the ball. The problem he had today is that he had no options at times. Now, I still put it down to Botman because he gave the ball away. If it's not an option, go long. Hit it long to Wilson or Isaac and go run the channels for me. Go run the channels and take the pressure off me. That's what he should have done. But he tried to keep the ball ticking in short, sharp spaces, and City pressed him a number of times. It wasn't the worst for it. Like we said, Trippier and Longstaff were far worse, and maybe even Joe Linton and a couple of others were worse than Botman over the course of the game. But we expect better from Botman, don't we? We've seen how good he normally is on the ball. He's normally calm, collected, very rarely loses possession, always very, very solid in possession and likes to get us in attacking positions. He wasn't quite that today, so that's why he hasn't got the rating that Lascelles has, so 6.5.
Cool. Let's move on. Let's go to Burn. Burn for me. Foden was just way too fast. Now Foden is class. So straight off. Well, it was the same issue with last week and Anthony. Burn has been showing up as not being a left back. We said it like ages and ages ago back when he started in that position, and he did well. He did well for a long period of time, but it's kind of beginning to tell. That's why I think, and I know someone said rose tinted glasses, but Target in there, he probably needs more game time. He's probably not going to go straight in though. But a specialized left back, I think, would be no harm now for a while, and it even give Burn a little bit of a break. But for me, I also thought he was a bit at fault for the first goal. He could have done more to stop Foden in his class, so it's difficult. But I'm giving Burn a 6.
I'm tempted to go as low as 4, if I'm honest. I think I'll give him a 5. I can't really give him much worse than Trippier. I think you're right, he should have been closer to Foden for the first goal, in my opinion. It should have been dealt with well before he even got anywhere near the box. Some of the other things he just looked a bit like the rest of the rest of the team, he looked tired as well. We know he's not an out, and he even said in the build, he thinks he's best positioned as centre back, but he plays well at left back, and I think obviously we know you look back at certain games and you went right, he's done well against them, and then you know he plays against the bigger teams, the better teams that have got more quality, and he does struggle. But the other thing I'll say in his defence, though, how many different people has he had to link up with on that left hand side to create an awareness of who's going to come forward, stay back. You've had Joe Linton there, you've had Maxi there, you've had Gordon there today, you've had start near the season as well. You've had Fraser and Murphy occasionally as well. It always seems to be that wide left that has whether the change, because Miggy was on fire the first half of the season, so. And that relationship with him and Trippier has worked. And to be fair, that's probably been the only they've been as a partnership pretty much all season. Whereas on the left, it's always changed. And he was defensively more solid when you had someone like Joe Linton playing the wide left, because you get that defensive help from him. Whereas you sometimes have someone like Alan Saint-Maximin, and you look at him and you think, yeah, he's more of an attacking threat, but do you sacrifice that because you obviously don't get the defensive cover that you get off them? So I've got to give him that sort of duty. He's working with a lot of different people in front of him constantly. There needs to be a partnership, and perhaps he's another one that needs a rest. And it's another thing where perhaps we know that Target's been out injured for a bit as well. So obviously we haven't had a chance. People keep forgetting we've still got Jamal Lewis, and there must be a reason why Eddie Howe's not picking him for whatever reason. I know
we've never seen him again.
I don't think we will now. I think he was kept in the squad to try and get a bit more fitness. Obviously, he said he wasn't. Eddie Howe said a few times he wasn't fit. He's probably getting to the stage where he's getting to the fittest stage of his career now, like since he's been there as a manager. But it's weird the fact that he's not even making the squad. You know what I mean? It's like if you put that on, he's not. You don't know if it's a similar situation to Ryan Fraser. Ryan Fraser's blatantly turned around and said he wants to be playing, he wants to go. And as soon as he said that, he's trying to go out in the 23s. We don't know whether that's something that's affecting Jamal Lewis. He's still young. He wants to be playing football. But I think we'll see Target come back in. And I think what we'll also see when Target comes back in is it'll help relieve the pressure on Trippier at set pieces, because Trippier has only been, unless you're outside the box and it's a shooting chance, Shaw tends to become available. We at the start of the season we had 4 set piece takers. We had Trippier, Target, Shelvey, and Shaw, and obviously Murphy occasionally when you came on. But Target hasn't been playing. Shelvey's gone, and obviously Shaw was injured today. So with the only real set piece taker we had today was Trippier. That's if you're especially not on form as well. That's a lot of pressure to keep putting the ball in. But yes, don't get me wrong, he's an English international and should still be doing better. So Burn wasn't his best game today. I think needs a break. Just take out the firing line for a little bit. Bring Target back. Give him a run in, especially against teams who haven't got possibly the attacking threat as a wide winger like we've had against the last 3 games. This is the sort of thing where you'd be thinking Target's a more attacking fullback. So when you're playing Wolves, when you're playing Forest, this is the sort of game that possibly be more suited for Target as well.
Cool. Pete. Burn, baby, burn.
Yeah, I'll give Burn a 5. I think this is the beginning of the end of Burn being a regular first-team player in Newcastle's team. And some people might not like that, but it's a necessity to move the team forward. We need a new left-back in the summer. It's now become a priority position. We need a new left-back to come in who's made and ready, not just to play Premier League football, but to play, hopefully, fingers crossed, European football. And Dan Burn, Richie's talked about it. I listened to the interview that he had with Rio Ferdinand and the guys on the benches before the game, and he said he's a centre back. Well, if you want to play as a centre back, you're going to have to be 3rd or 4th choice, because he doesn't get into our centre back pairing. He's not better than Botman. He's not better than Shaw. And I'm confident that we're going to get another centre-back in the summer that will be ahead of him, so he'll be third or fourth choice at best. And if he's happy with that, fair enough. But I think we go with another left-back in the summer and we move forward. So his performances are untimely. They're not well-timed for him. But I agree with everyone in the chat and what you boys have said. It's time to let Dan Burn have a rest. Like some people were annoyed that Target was on the bench and Burn wasn't, and Burn was starting today. Burn was always going to start today. You were never ever going to bring Target in at the Etihad. Like you're literally throwing him to the lions there. Like the first game back, you're playing him at the Etihad. Like, you know, it's different with Lascelles because we had no other option. Shaw is injured, so therefore he had to play. But you bring Target on and you give him a few minutes, exactly what he did today. I thought he played it really well. And I think I would be surprised if Target doesn't start against Wolves. It's a perfect game for him, in my opinion. But yeah, Dan Burn wasn't great today. There were moments where we dealt with Foden and dealt with that left-hand side quite well. But in general, he just wasn't good. And I get your argument, Richie, with regards to the players that he's had supporting him down that left-hand side. But his performance today and recently is not down to his partnership. It's down to him individually.
Yeah.
And it's his defensive position. You can argue that, you know, he's had a chop and change of certain players and various other things, but you could argue it the other way, that they don't get the support from Burn from the left-hand side, from an attacking point of view. We've said the same about Maxi. We've said the same about various other players that are playing on that side that don't get the same type of support. You know, you don't see an overlap today. Gordon's on that left-hand side. You don't see an overlap really today from Dan Burn, but you see many an overlap for Trippier. Trippier is the one that heads the ball back in for Wilson to miss that golden chance. Like, he gets forward. Burn doesn't do that. And as a winger, you need that. So you could argue it the other way. But I get what you're saying. Like, the chopping and changing probably doesn't help in terms of that core understanding. What I will say is that at times Gordon did get back and defend. He did his defensive duties okay to a point. But
I think that with Gordon, that'll come in time when he gets more starts and gets more minutes. Won't it, surely?
Yeah, well, hopefully. Hopefully that's the case. But I just think Burns' bad performance today was down to him not playing well.
I've got a question for you, lads. Next weekend, we play Wolves. Picture a greased up Adama Traore. Who do you want in that left back spot to try and tame him? With again a fellow with a bit of pace. It's going to be a big decision for how in what he'll do with that squad selection next weekend. Keep it in mind. You don't have to answer now. Let's move on.
I'll answer it now if you want, but it's up to you.
Yeah. No. Keep it for look. It's a topic for away days anyway. Bruno next. Bruno's a nice ball onto Gordon. I mentioned there in the first half. A few nice touches. Nothing special at times either. Bruno, you know, he does control things. Everything tries to go through him. I give him a 6.75 today.
Well, I'll have a think. Well, Pete, you go this one first.
I would give Bruno a 6.5. I thought there were flashes of quality from Bruno, little passes here that broke the lines that were very, very good. But there's clearly something not right with him. He's clearly still injured. It's all right how saying that he trained all week and blah, 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 but after 20 minutes, he's pulling up with his ankle again. There's clearly a problem there. So he's not playing at 100% fitness. And you can tell because he's not as combative, he's not as aggressive in his play, he's not as demanding of the ball. He's almost kind of just playing in neutral. He's just going about his business. And that is not the Bruno that we want, which is a shame. If that's the case, I wouldn't have played him today. I'd have rested him and made sure he's ready for Wolves. because we've got a run of fixtures now that we can actually win, and we can go on a really decent run and actually claw back some points that we've lost over recent weeks, and we need him fully fit. Now we're going into another week where the question is going to be, is Bruno 100% fit? Is he okay to play again? Now, we made it through the game to a point, but, is it still an issue that's there? And of course, Man City's midfield is very, very good. So he's always going to be up against it. So if you're coming up against a world-class midfield and you're 80, 75% fit, you're always kind of fighting a losing battle. So I don't put it up against Bruno. I have to say, though, and I've been thinking about this for a while, we need him to sign a new contract ASAP. I am becoming increasingly concerned that next season could well be his last at Newcastle. And people might not like that. But I'm looking at his reactions after the cup final. I'm looking at his reactions today. I'm looking at him as a player. He's good enough to be playing in that team today. He could have quite easily replaced Gundogan in that Man City team, and they could have been equally as good, if not better. He's looking at other players. He's looking at Man United. He could quite easily replace a Bruno Fernandes or whoever, a Fred in that team, and play there. And there's going to come a point that if we're not doing what we want and moving forward to play Champions League football, which is what he signed for, I do worry that at some point, big teams are going to come in for him. And Newcastle being Newcastle, and we're not going to like this, they are going to respect his views. And if he turns around and says, I can't turn down Real Madrid, I can't turn down whoever comes in for me, that they're going to accept a bid for him. We need him to sign a new deal right now. Because I think if he doesn't sign a new deal right now, I think we're going to get bids in the summer, and it's going to be not necessarily a Kabay situation, because I don't think he would refuse to play or anything like that. But I think you're going to get a Bruno that's going to be conflicted, and we can't have a Bruno that's conflicted because he does not play in the same way when he's conflicted. He's conflicted today with his injury, and he's not played in the way in which we expect him to. Just imagine if he's got pressure on him and emphasising on him moving to another club, a bigger club out there in Europe, how that's going to affect his game. I am genuinely concerned, and people may shoot me down for it. I don't really care. I want Bruno to stay for the next 5-10 years. But in reality, I'm thinking he's good enough to be playing at the top end of European football right now. And he's 25 years old.
I had the same thought today, Pete, because in watching that game, and I know people in the chat are saying about he does look a bit frustrated as well. That's, I think, it's more with himself than the actual overall team. But yeah, and I was thinking to myself, yeah, a nice little boost for us this week would be the news that Bruno has signed a new deal. It does sound like, and it does look like, and the little tweets he put out or whatever, it does look like there's something going on in the background. So hopefully it comes soon. Look, it can't be that difficult. Give him more or less what he wants, because we will build our team around him. But
he's committed to the club. There's no doubt about it. He loves Newcastle. He loves the city. He loves everything about what represents Newcastle United. He's incorporated his family into it. His interview with his wife on Sky Sports, talking about how much she loves it. You very rarely get that from South American players. So it's so unique. You've got a South American player that talks so positively about Newcastle. Yeah, they mentioned the weather, but it wasn't really an overriding factor. They just loved being here and loved being loved. His dad being
his dad won't leave. His dad will stay here.
His dad's as famous as Bruno. Like, it's crazy. But there will come a point where ambition overrides everything. And if we're not moving forward the way in which he wants to, one or two put it in the chat as well. I think that Brian mentioned it. He put Bruno's here for the project. If it's not moving quick enough, he'll go. And I genuinely believe that. And look, I'm not saying it because I want him to go. Of course I don't. He's been our best player for God knows how long. Yeah. He's a supreme talent. I'd be absolutely in bits if he left this club. But I'm a realist, and a player at 25 years old that's, and someone just mentioned it, not getting into the Brazilian squad as a mainstay starter, and isn't in the Brazilian squad for this round of fixtures, must be thinking, what do I need to do to break the lines internationally? Yeah. And of course, where do I go to win trophies? Like, if we'd have won a trophy on Sunday, he'd have probably signed the deal right now. We'd have had an announcement. He'd have signed the deal. It would have been all done and dusted because he's won something at Newcastle and he'll see the future and more. But because we haven't won and because we're in such a bad form,
Bit of doubt.
there is doubt. Exactly, Daz. You're absolutely right. There's doubt creeping in. So something needs to change. We need a new deal being announced to give the fans and to give everyone a spot, but equally to push the suitors away, to push the Real Madrids away, to say, he just signed a new deal. You can't come to us in the summer because you're going to be paying 200 million or whatever to get him. So it puts us back, it puts them back a year. And it gives us a bit of breathing room to go, right, okay, we've got Bruno, we can build the team. But if he doesn't sign that deal and we go into another season, the question marks and the noises are going to get louder and louder, and that's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, you have it yourself. Even people in the chat will as well. Like in your own like line of work, if things aren't going your way, you'll go, oh, look at all these offers, all these emails I'm getting. Maybe I should look at this. Well, maybe I should not be as blinkered and just look what's out there. So get it sorted. Keep them happy. Keep them sweet. Keep them in Newcastle. Richie, Bruno.
It's a difficult one. I'll probably go with a 6. I think a lot of it's probably not down to him himself. I noticed there's quite a lot of times that he had the ball and there was no movement in front of him. You know, we know how much, you know, Bruno likes to play, a bit like what we say about Botman and Shaw. They're good at, you know, playing the ball through the lines and breaking them up. There was no movement from him today. And I think I don't know whether it's just he's perhaps feeling a bit of pressure because obviously we now know that obviously we've lost Joe Linton for the next 2 games. We've technically got 3 fit centre midfielders. And bear in mind, we play with 3 centre midfielders. It's not really good, you know what I mean? And I think this comes back to the fact that we let Shelby go and didn't replace. And that's a big, big thing that's going to bite us back in the arse at the minute. Because obviously we had nobody that could, when Bruno was suspended, we had no one to cover the 3 that we had in. You know, when the amount of ground that they cover, they tire quicker. And obviously, we know that Bruno's not necessarily not he's tired, but obviously the ankle's giving jip. And I think the one thing that was you talk about the frustration stuff. I think that's the thing that stood out to me today that was made me really think about Bruno is definitely frustrating. And as well, Pete was saying that, you know, that's that doubt. There's something going on perhaps behind the scenes. Is if you look at when he went off, when he went down with his ankle and he was just, you know, he went over the sideline and Howe went over him to start talking to him. And he kept on, Bruno just didn't seem to listen. He seems on a different planet. He wasn't like, you know, there's been times before when, you know, Howe goes over, he listens intently to what's being said. He just didn't seem to be there. It was, I don't know, it just wasn't himself. I don't know whether he's thought that, like Pete said, he's elsewhere or he's thinking, I can't do this by myself in the middle or whatever. But there's just something not right. And it's obviously getting a little bit more for us. We know now he's going to be playing, you know, definitely playing the next 2. To be fair, if he's fit, he'll be playing anyway because he's one of our best players. He's the creative spark that we've got. But I wonder if he's starting to feel the pressure that he is the only creative spark we've got in the team. And I don't know if that's perhaps been a little bit of a burden on him. I don't know. But
Richie, yeah, he definitely starts every game. There's only one man, he's not here tonight, that would question whether he would start or not. But yeah, he was at the match today actually as well. All right, Chris. Did you give a rating for Bruno? Richie?
Yeah, I said 6.
6. Okay, let's move on. Let's go to Longstaff. Was replaced by Willock on the 62nd match. Looking, I just give him a 6. Not much to say, but 6 for me.
Probably the same. He battled quite a bit, as we know he did. I had a feeling he was going to pick that booking up today because you look at who we've got coming up. You know, it gets them out of the way for the games coming up in end of this month in April when you've got Man United, you've got you've got Man United, Spurs, and teams like that coming up soon. And then obviously Brighton as well, and the returning to West Ham. So to get that suspension out of the way against Forest and Wolves.
Oh, hang on. Whoa, Richie, we're talking about Longstaff.
Did y'all say I think we went to Joel? Sorry, mate.
Yeah.
But to be fair,
tie it all together.
Oh, I'll tie it all together. Well, to be fair, Longstaff wouldn't even go to 6. To be honest with you, mate, he would be lucky to get a 5. He was just awful. He was absolutely awful today. He looked leggy. He wanted too much time on the ball. He just, I can't remember which one of you said it before. He just, I don't know. The Premier League's quick, and when you're playing the best team technically in the Premier League, who can press as well as what we can? You can't. You're not going to have 5-6 seconds on the ball. You've got to make something happen quick. It's a lot of one touch or give and go, or 2 touch at the best. He just looked awful today, and then obviously I thought he was a bit unlucky to come off like last week in the cup final a bit early. But I think obviously it was just it's a one-off game. You have to go all guns blazing sort of thing. But it was awful again today. And someone said today his reluctance to put a challenge in as well. He's just completely off the pace today, and it could be the fact that we've stated this numerous times. He's on average covered the most ground in the Premier League this season over anyone. Could he just be getting the stage of tiredness as well? Because as I said, we're lacking in midfield now. So is he leggy on that? So a 5. That's obviously you've got my Joe Linton one as well, mate. So just skip me the next round.
What did you say for Joe Linton? What was your rate?
About missing the next 2 games. It's the fact that I gave him a 6 as well, but it was just the fact that he's now suspended for the next 2 games, which are Wolves and Forest. So it's probably the right two games to miss with what we've got coming up after.
Okay, cool. Pete, we'll go to you for Longstaff and Joe Linton, and then I'll go to Joe Linton as well.
Longstaff. I thought he was poor today. Probably give him a 5.5. Again, get the ball away cheaply many a times. Had a great opportunity to score and hesitated. But other than that, I don't really remember too much of what he did, which is a bit of a worry because he wasn't really in the game at all. And that kind of typifies where he's at the moment. It hasn't been great in recent games. He needs to up his levels if he wants to stay in this team because look, we're gonna strengthen. We're gonna get better players coming in, and he might be playing this season, but decisions will be made next season, and he might well find himself on the bench. So he's playing for his future to start in the team. So we need him to improve more. But the biggest thing for me is his ability to give the ball away. Just so cheap. It needs to be better. So 5. Yeah, it's 5.5. I'll give him for that. Joe Linton. I don't think Joe Linton had a bad game today. I thought he was okay. I thought he was combative. I thought he got himself stuck in. But that yellow card just wound me up. You could see it coming from a mile away. There was no need for him to go into that tackle.
Because the ref played on and they came back to it, yeah.
There was no need for him to go in. He was never going to get there. He was so off the pace in terms of getting there in time to win the ball. It was always going to be a foul. And he argued that it was his first one, but it's a foul. And it's a yellow card. You look at the contact, it's blatant. He stamps on his foot. Like, you can't argue that. And I just think whether the captain, whether Lascelles or Trippier, whether Eddie Howe has a word with him and just says, you can be big and physical, but things like that when you're pressing the ball high, just, get to them, but, just make yourself big, but don't get yourself into a position where you're going to give needless free kicks away. And that's the only thing that frustrates me, because these are 2 games now, Wolves and Forest, that we need him. We need him for these 2 games, and now he's not there. And he's going to be a big miss. A big, big miss. I just, not great. Yano just put in the miss.
Yeah, I know. I was going to get to that as well, yeah. The miss.
It's a difficult one. It's not as cut and dry as you think. That ball is a great ball in, by the way. It's a superb ball in. but the way it lands, it literally has to fall on his foot in order to score. Could he have done better? Maybe he could have got something on it, but it's not as easy. It's not as easy in real time as you think to get on the end of a ball like that. It was whipped in with some pace. So I'm not going to go in too hard about that, but I just think his yellow card is kind of overshadowed a lot of his performance today because I didn't think he played too bad. I'll give him a 6.5.
I've gone 6.75 for Joelinton. I have a wrote down, Richie. But no, it was maybe a bit harsh. But yeah, you would like to see him bury that. But how many times have we wanted Joelinton to bury something for us through the years? But he had an okay game. But yeah, the card just missing those 2 games now. It gives someone else a chance. We could have done with him, but he has the knack now of every game he plays, he plays the other card. He kind of, I agree with your saying, Pete. He kind of, he's a beast. It goes into beast mode, but then he just kind of sometimes just goes overboard a bit in silly situations at times. But 6.75 for J7 for me.
Do you think just go back obviously because obviously people talk about the booking there? Do you not think it's actually going to time right that way when he's going to miss the 2 game suspension, especially with Spurs, Man United coming up, and obviously Brighton in at the end of the month and the start of April?
They're all 6-pointers. They're those games, especially the Spurs.
I'd rather have Joelinton available for them than do you know what I mean? Than missing for those.
For me,
that's all I'm thinking anyway. But
no, I can see where you're coming from. But for me, the game against Wolves is a must-win. We're at home now. If we don't win in that, and it'll be a tough game because they've picked up form. But our season is going to peter out if we don't win that game. Draw isn't even good enough for me. We might be still hovering around the European places, but we need to start somewhere. We've gone too much of a slump recently, and we need something. We need a goal or 2 just to kind of a bit of confidence and then get a bit of momentum going, and then going into Forest, away at Forest, who have picked up a bit as well themselves. We should be beating Forest, but look at when we're on that run. If we don't if we lose against Wolves and we lose at Forest, where do you forget about those other games you're talking about, Richie?
I'll argue that I want him available for all the games.
Well, I agree. Yeah, I want him. We knew he wasn't going to be. He was never going to get the rest of the season with not getting 1 yellow card, was he? Realistically.
We'll come to that side point in a second, but no, yeah, no, I agree with you, and yeah, the Brighton and Man U games are massive. We want him back for those ones because they're big games. But I just think, like Daz has just said, we need a win desperately, and we want our biggest players back playing. We would have needed him for Wolves under the like St James's Park, like desperate for a win. We need someone that's going to stand up and be counted, particularly if we've got a goal, if we're a goal up and we're trying to see a game out. You want a Joelinton in that team. It's going to break things up. It's going to be working his socks off, big, strong in a tackle, like hard. You know what he's going to give you, and having that missing is massive for us. I would have rathered him just took the hit against Liverpool and missed one of his games to be Man City today, and then the other Wolves, and then be back for Forest and beyond. The fact that we're missing for both of them, it's just frustrating. But look, the whole situation with Joelinton's frustrating in terms of how many yellow cards he accumulates. He is very much a Tiote type player, and how we need to work on him moving forward, because, it sounds really weird, sounds really crazy, but I actually worry about him getting to 15 yellow cards now and potentially missing 3 games. Which I don't really want to think about, but it's a genuine possibility when he comes back from that ban, because of the amount of yellow cards he does pick up because of the way in which he plays. I don't want him to lose his ability with the way in which he plays, but there is a way of playing to get around that. there's a safer way of playing to still be as effective in games, but not giving an easy yellow card away here or there. And I think there's something that we need to work on with that moving forward. But
I think he's been unlucky with a few yellow cards as well, mine, to be fair. There's been 3 or 4 that are probably, he's been harsh on him. But, obviously he's got them. So that's obviously something we've got to deal with.
Let's face it, some of them were because he'd been pushing and shoving players to kind of prove a point, like to show his support to other players. But there's 3 or 4 there that could have been avoided. That it wouldn't have been nowhere near 10 if he'd have not got too physical. I think there was one with Brighton earlier on in the season where he was like pushing the guy and he got a yellow card off the back of that. There's been a couple more off the back of that. There's, like I say, 3 or 4 that could have been completely wiped out now that he would have been more than comfortable. So there's that element of it that he just needs to calm down. And if he does that, he'll be okay. But yeah, Fox just said he'll get close to 20 yellow cards. I hope not, because we can't afford to have him missing for 3 games. After these 2 games, we need him playing because he is so crucial to us. Great to see Saeed in the chat. Top man.
20 yellow cards. Yeah, that could happen too. Right, we'll move on. We get some of these questions as well. We'll move to the attackers. Let's go to Miggy. Miggy, yeah, he hasn't been firing on all cylinders recently, and he's getting worse in a way. Look, he did so well for us at the early start of the season, and the combination with Trippier and Bruno as well. But and we've been found out a bit on that move. I'm giving Miggy a 6. I'd like to see ASM and Gordon start in the wide positions and Isak up top for front 3 against Wolves.
Yeah, I'll give him a 6 as well. I think it's that same old that we talked about the other day. I'm just so frustrated with the fact he gets past his man sometimes, but he's cut backs beyond them. And even now with his laybacks to people on the right, the balls are bad. It's just something. I don't know. It's just. I was so surprised he started. We said on away days of death that we knew there was going to be a change, and I think both me and Pete thought it was time for ASM to get a chance on Gordon as well and move Maxi over to the right. And it's something that I've seen quite a few people talk about in the chat, and I might as well mention it now because obviously we're talking about that right hand side, and it was people have said, "Oh, Murphy came on and did well, played 2 fantastic balls in from the right hand side," and obviously there was no one there. That's because the person who's usually in there is Callum Wilson, and he's not there for that sort of ball. It used to be like when we used to have our best crosses on the bench. We used to have Andy Carroll on the bench, and then you'd bring Andy Carroll on and take your best crosses off. It was that sort of thing. He's putting some cracking balls in, but the person you want on the end of them is off the pitch because, as we talked about before, Isak's more intricate. He's not an out-and-out goal poacher. Do you know what I mean? He moves in and around. He tries to create it. And don't get me wrong, Isak was perfect for when he came on today. The chances he created, the move, he looked a lot more of a threat than what Wilson had done throughout the day. But I think he's not like that, the 6-yard box poacher that Wilson can be moving. And those balls were fantastic. And I think it's if we had Maxi on the right, Maxi would be putting those balls on because Maxi can do it. And if you're saying to him, look, get past him with the ball, and he does it. When he's played on the right before, he's brilliant at it. For me, you put Maxi on the right next week. You put Gordon, give Gordon a run in the team on that left. Give him a chance to make it. Especially when you've got Wolves and you've got Forest coming up. Perfect games where you can get your teeth in. You know what? Gordon's got that fight in him. He's got that. We talked about when he first came in. He's got that shit houser about. And these are games where you want him to, especially if he gets his first start against Wolves at St James's, the crowd will be back behind him, like we always are with everyone who pulls on the shirt. He'll get behind him, and he'll get that confidence with the first start. And I think we have to go with Isak now. And I think we'll see a different team. I think we'll be scoring goals next week if that's the front team. But it was picked up what that chat was. People were saying Murphy deserves a start. I would still pick ASM over Maxi all day, but give Maxi over Murphy all day long, and then get him on the right and get that ball because Maxi can do it, and his quality is overall better than what Murphy is.
Pete, your thoughts on Miggy?
I'm struggling to see what Miggy did today in the team. I've given him a 6 because a 6 is kind of, in my opinion, 6 is like the standard. You know, like everyone starts at the beginning of the game. It's a bit like the old football managers. The old football managers, everyone starts at a 6. And like, you either go up, you go down. It's one of them.
That's how I do my ratings. I give them ratings at half time, and then I give them full time, and I up and down them as depending in the second half how things are going.
And again,
old school.
And so I'll give Miggy a 6 because that's what he started with at the beginning of the game, and I didn't see him do anything that deserved more than that. I didn't see anything that deserved less than that. You know what he's going to give you. He'll run all day. He'll work hard for you. But I just think, like, it might seem really harsh and some people might not agree with it because obviously he scored 10 goals for us this season. He scored 10 very, very important goals for us, and he's been brilliant, outstanding for us this season. But he's not playing well. Outside of him scoring goals, he is not playing well at the moment. And I do think that, like a number of other players we've talked about tonight, he does need a rest. He looks tired. But equally, he needs that, as I said to you about Wilson, he needs that fire in his belly. He needs to know that that place is not guaranteed. He's not going to start every week. He's just signed a new deal. He's not just going to get that start every week just because he's Miggy and he's signed a new deal and he's our current top scorer. He needs to know, like Wilson, that you've got to fight for your place. And I do think that starting him on the bench against the likes of Wolves could really be the kick up the backside that he needs. And I do think that we need natural wingers that are going to be able to whip balls into the box. I really do. Dave just put give Miggy a go on the left. Yes, I would naturally because you've got a left footer, and then if you've got Maxi or Gordon, you've got a right footer. Whoever it is that plays on the right, you've got that natural winger ability. But the thing I'll argue with is that Miggy don't cross the ball.
I was going to say, I know exactly what you were going to say because we discussed it before.
The amount of times that Miggy gets the ball at feet without anybody pressing him, it still doesn't cross the ball. And it's like, well, there's no point
cross the ball
on the left because he don't cross the ball anyway. The one time he's crossed the ball, he played the ball back for, I think it was Longstaff's goal against Southampton, which I was surprised that he even did. But he just doesn't cross the ball. We need wingers that are going to cross the ball into the box.
But to be fair, that wasn't even really a cross for the Longstaff. That was more it's a pass.
It's like a cutback, isn't it?
It's not even a cross, is it? It's not a cross.
Yeah. So
I said it before. Hang on. I said it before. Miggy and he's, like when the ball's in the air, he can hit a powerful shot, and that's some of his class goals that came from that. But he doesn't have a great powerful shot, and that maybe is something to do with the crossing as well. Can he ping it across? Get in the weights.
No, well, he's played wide. He's played wide for us long enough now to be able to know that as a wide man, you cross the board. And Fox has made a great point. Miggy has never crossed the board in his career, never been part of his game. It never has been because when he was at Atlanta United, he's playing as number 10, so he didn't need to cross the ball in. A lot of his runs were through the middle. So only since he's been at Newcastle, he's played more of a wide man. But he's played at Newcastle long enough. He said he's been here 4 years now. He's been in a position where he should now be expecting to be crossing the ball in, whether it's with his right or with his left. He should be, but he's not. And it's a frustration because that constant cutback onto his left is becoming predictable now. And it's becoming predictable because other teams are starting to kind of figure out his game. What they can't figure out, and what he is very good at, is his movement. His movement, where he kind of like dinks forward and then makes that darting run in behind. Like they can't deal with that because he's so fast. He's got such great work rate. He just can't be matched in that. And I just think that maybe having him off the pitch and having him come on and do that later on in the game, a little bit like we did with Maxi and Willock today. They came on and really kind of stomped their authority on the game. Maybe we need that from Miggy later on in the game where teams are tired. I think we could really affect Wolves with that, with bringing Miggy on later on in the game where they're tired and he makes those type of runs because they're not going to be expecting it, or they're going to be tired to that move, and he could really exploit them on the back of that. So maybe that's an option. I don't know. But in terms of performance today, it's a standard 6 because I didn't really see him do anything above and beyond that tells me that he had a decent game.
Right, move on. Let's go to Gordon. I thought Gordon did well in the first half, but then petered out in the second half, pretty much like our season. But I'm going to give him a 6.5. It was the time to take him off at that stage. 6.5, Gordon. His debut.
First of all, Daz, just remember we've still got a third of the season left. It hasn't pitted out just yet. We're still.
As we stand next weekend, telling. No, that's why not. Sure, I want everything to change next weekend. I want a couple of goals. I don't care who plays if it means that we win the game, because we win the game against Wolves, and that gives us momentum into if we win Wolves and Forest, we're back in this, fighting for that 4th spot or even European spaces. But
I think the thing, I think we're still we're still in it. Mathematically, easily, we're still in it. It's not even done without a shout. But the problem is, we win next week and we win against Forest, and it's more pressure on everybody else. We're turning the season around. The pressure's on them, because if we get 6 out of them, and obviously Spurs slip up again, or Liverpool, it puts the ball in our court, and then we've got that confidence to attack the rest of the season. So obviously that's just my opinion on that bit. But Gordon, I thought I'd give him a 6. He just needs to run the team. I think he just needs to build up a bit more confidence. You know, I'll put a comment before came up just as Pete was talking, and it was off Taggy Vivid. He said that ASM and Gordon didn't do anything either. The thing is, that's Gordon's first start today. You've got to give him a chance. You know, when he has come on, he's looked to create. His first full start's coming against Man City. So you've got to give him a chance. You can't say, he hasn't done anything either, because he hasn't had the same game time as people who are playing at the minute. Do you know what I mean? So give him a chance now. And ASM, to be fair, when him and Isak came on, we looked a lot more threatening. You know, there was a bit more. So on that one, for me, I think we just need to try something, because obviously the 3 that's up front at the minute aren't working. We need to try something. And for me, as Pete said the other day, we've got to try a variation of those, and perhaps they're not resting on the laurels anymore. You know, Mickey had a fantastic start to the season with the World Cup, but we all said his form wouldn't continue. It's impossible to continue that level of form all the way through. He's not the same caliber of player as Haaland. As Rashford had an awful start this season, he's now on fire now. Haaland had a fantastic start this season. You know, he hasn't been scoring as many goals as he has been recently. That's always going to be the case. You're never going to go through a 38-game season and be electric at every single one of them. You are going to have, peaks and troughs all the way through it. But it's that stage now where we're talking since the World Cup. We're talking 2.5 months now of a dip from the current front 3. We really need just a bit of a kick up the backside. If they give them a start, if something, say for example, we win 2-0 next week, and the front 3 look electric, it means people like Miggy and Wilson are going to be thinking, shit, we better step our game up. We better look to do. We want to get our places back and stuff like that. We want to be part of the squad going forward. Obviously, we know Miggy's just signed a new contract. That doesn't mean we can't sell him. Someone, I can't remember who it was in one of the previous shows, turned around and said, he signed a contract. That could be to protect your asset. If someone comes in, because we still said the other week, if someone still put a bid in for 30 million for, would you sell Miggy?
Hold that thought, Richie, because you know what's coming in the summer.
This is what I'm saying.
Squad game 3, the price is right.
Yeah. But this is what we're saying. It's you're protecting your assets. You've got to keep them on because with the project we're in now, you've got to keep all your players on their toes. And it's a few times we've mentioned in this show tonight, have people been a little bit complacent? Have they not been having to look over the shoulder so much? Or are some getting to the stage now where they actually are having to look over the shoulder and they're not used to it? Obviously, Maxi used to be everything used to revolve around Maxi. Obviously, now it doesn't. So has that been that's affected them as well? We don't know. But look, we've got to make changes. And I think you can't really have a go. It's Gordon for not doing anything when he hasn't really had the minutes compared to the other people in that position. So for me, the 6 did all right. Sparks in the first half. Obviously, he came out. I was surprised he came out. I would have took Miggy off over at Gordon and played Gordon a little bit longer. But for some reason, and it's going to be coming up in there before the end of the show, I imagine that has Howe got his favourites, and he likes to try and basically get more game time than others. And is that, Gordon's one of those ones that he's not one of the favourites as yet. He comes off before he knows what Miggy can do. So
you're not saying Lascelles in there, no. Pete.
Gordon, I will give a 6 for the similar reasons that I gave Miggy Almiron. I didn't really see anything from him that really stood out. That's not me having a go at him or anything like that. It's, like Richie said, it's his first start. We've got to remember, and there's a few in the chat that have kind of like gone in on Gordon, which I'm quite surprised about. I know I'm just sorry to take the chat off you, Richie, 1 second.
Sorry, Ben. Let's go for it.
Ryan just hate to single out. He put this earlier on the show. Hate to single out a player, but people have to take off their rose-tinted glasses with Gordon. Never showed for Botman or Joe Linton and played every pass backwards. Not ready yet. Now, obviously, that's Brian's opinion on that. Well, what I will say is that players need games. Like we said this for ASM when he made his first start a number of weeks ago, and everyone was kind of like getting on his back because he wasn't like scoring goals and making magic moments. Players need games to build in. But this is what Eddie Howe is doing now. He's giving Gordon a start to not only say, right, show us what you can do, but equally to give him minutes starting a game for Newcastle to get him used to the way in which we play, the way in which we set up what we need to do. There were lots of things that he didn't do well in terms of an attacking position. 1 or 2 have mentioned that he constantly cut back onto his right, a little bit like Miggy did on the left-hand side, on the right-hand side, constantly cutting back onto Miggy's left. On the left-hand side, Gordon was doing the same, just constantly cutting back, which, Daz, you're absolutely right. Just switch them over is the natural thing. I don't know why.
To be fair, though, the one chance he had on with his left foot, he scuffed it.
Yeah. And look, I'm not going to hold that.
But do you know what? I want to have a go at that because he's at least attempting to do it with that foot.
And it was a great run. It was a great run, a great ball by Bruno, great run. And that's what we want. We want players making those sorts of runs. But I just didn't see enough of him to say he did something above and beyond. I think there was one track back that he did where he kind of like ushered the ball out from De Bruyne, which was decent. He didn't do anything wrong, but there wasn't anything that stood out. But what I will say is that a lot of people went in on ASM for that reason. We need to give Gordon that same opportunity. Gordon's 23 years old. He's still a young lad, maybe even younger than that. I think he's 21, maybe. It's like we need to get behind him. We need to support him. He's barely kicked a ball at Everton, and now coming into Newcastle,
22.
Create 22. So he's just coming to Newcastle and expecting to create big things. Like I've said for a while now, Gordon, we will see the best of Gordon pre-season next season. Pre-season into next season once he's bedded himself into the club. But this is his chance to get used to the way in which we play, the way in which Eddie wants us to play, wants him to play, and it's a work in progress. It's a work in progress. So he's learning on the job, and he's still a young lad. So it will take time. But I would like to see him play on the right hand side. If St. Maxi is not playing on the right hand side, and it goes for the reasons that we've already talked about, is that I think we need a natural right-footed player to play on that side. I think maybe Trippier and Gordon may well link better together as an alternative to Miggy on that right-hand side than Maxi. Maxi likes to cut inside, but he likes to go both ways. He likes to keep the players guessing. Maybe the left-hand side would be fitting to him. I don't know. I would just like maybe an interchange every 20 minutes, to switch it over and to give a player
keep the opposition on the toes as well.
Yeah. Look, I remember. This is me going back to my teenage years. I remember the season I played for one of my teams locally, and we ended up winning the treble. And the one thing that we did with our wingers is that we did it in training, and we said we had some fantastic wingers that were naturally left-footed, one naturally right-footed. And
have you got their name, Pete?
What's that?
Have you got their names? We can give them a call.
I don't think they'd be able to do a job right now. But outstanding players in their own right. But one thing the point I'm making is that in training and in games, the one thing that we talked about in tactics, in setting up for the team, is that for our wingers, we'd say, right, after 10 minutes, swap. Even if it's for 5 minutes, but just to keep the opposition guessing, just to get them thinking, which way are they going? Are they going left or right? What are they doing? And teams would change their tactics, and then all we'd do is switch back. And they wouldn't know what we were doing. Like they just didn't know what to do. And just to give them that little bit of imbalance for that period of time throws a team out. And we can capitalize on that. That's what Newcastle need to do. But I just think we are very, very rigid in the way in which we're performing at the moment. And I think it's a little bit to our detriment for me. And yeah, I think Gordon would benefit from playing on the right-hand side. And I did say when he signed, majority of his minutes for Everton have been on the right-hand side this season. And I do think that's where he'll play best.
Didn't that fella that made everyone worse that he came to manage used to do that? I can't remember his name. Bruce Ball. Yeah, he used to even try a bit of that. The fella that had no clue of tactics. But anyway, we'll see what happens. Move on to Wilson. Wilson for me, I thought he was poor. I thought he was better than he played against the Manchester Reds. So he's played better against the Manchester Blues today. But I'm still going to put him in the category for a second week in a row, 5.5. And I don't want to see. I want to see Wilson on the bench for a while, and as you said, Pete, put the fire in his belly then, and see what he can do after that. Because let him come on as a sub, but he's not really going to be much of an impact sub, I don't think. But yeah, put him under pressure. 5.5 Wilson for me.
I've got to say, I thought Wilson was unlucky for a little bit with something. I didn't think he got anything off the referee, and there was a lot of times when there was the centre backs were pretty much he was giving the piggybacks to the centre backs because they were all over him, and the referee gave absolutely nothing for them. And there was one time when he had his arm. I think Pete might have mentioned at the start. He had his arms all the way around Wilson, and the referee just turned around and went. And I'm thinking,
yeah,
what are you talking about? You're right. Yeah, it was like, calm down. I was like,
I think it was a burn dance.
But no, it was. It didn't get much like that. But the problem is, and this is the thing we've said a few times recently, against Liverpool, he missed a gilt-edged chance. Against West Ham, he missed a gilt-edged with 2 chances really against him. And today, he got 1 chance, perfect ball, and he just, it's just not there. I don't know what's happened since the World Cup. He's just not the Wilson that we know he is, and there's something really, really affecting him. And I think that he needs to cut down. And I've got to say, I've got to give him a 4. I think that chance, it was a gilt-edged chance to get us back at 1-1.
Oh, 4.
I've got to be true. I've got to be honest. I thought it was.
Is that your lowest ever score, Richie?
No, I think I gave a 3 in one review earlier in the season.
Was it Bruno? Was it Bruno? I can't remember. Wow.
I just think we're not talking about like a championship striker playing level. We're talking about it in England international.
Well, yeah, no, I'll say we are.
Well, do you know what I mean? Well, everyone else, 4 is fair. But I'm going to put 4 is very generous, Richie. No, he should be taking that chance. It's not even that you can turn and say it's on his wrong foot. It was right for him. His timing was completely off. It was a lovely ball in from by Trippier. You couldn't have asked for a better ball in. He's got to be finishing there. I'm sorry, especially against lesser teams like he's missing recently. But when you're playing Man City, you got to take a chance because you know you're not going to get as many of them as you will against other teams.
Pete Wilson.
I don't think it was a 4, in my opinion.
He was. Was he a 3?
He was a 2. No, I'm joking. No, I'm gonna give Wilson I'm gonna give him a 5. So not too far for you, Richie, and maybe a little bit more kind of positive. The miss I'm not even going to go into because he should have scored. It's simply that, or he should have made the keeper work at least. He should have hit the target. It was a great piece of work. But what I do value is the work that he did that maybe people don't see off the ball. Like you talked about, that little calm down moment, like that happened on 6 or 7 occasions in the time that he was on the pitch. He occupied those 2 centre backs and he made them work for their money in the game. Look, I'll put it out there, he pissed them off. He pissed those centre backs off because every time the ball was played long, he was getting close to them, he was causing problems. They very rarely got a clean-headed win on the ball. The ball was either dropping to him or dropping over them, which would allow Miguel Gordon to run onto it. He was causing problems in there. And so for me, he was doing a job, not the job that we want him to do, which is put the ball in the net, but he was doing a job. And this is why I said, and I said it to the Jordan's Down South boys, because they were like, why is Wilson starting? And they're going mad, and Daryl's in the chat, so he'll know because he's seen that. And all the boys were saying, why is he starting? And I said, there's a reason why Wilson will start this game, and it will be set up to play a certain way. Now, if we'd have played Isaac, we'd have played on the counter-attack, balls in and behind, running at defenders. If we're playing Wilson, it's to hold up play, it's to create opportunities to hold the ball up high up the pitch. And that's exactly what we did. So we tried to control possession by Wilson winning high balls up the pitch or holding on to the ball, trying to win the free kicks, slowing the game down to allow the team to push forward, to almost slow us into a position where later on in the game, we were still in a winning position. That's exactly why, in my opinion, Howe selected Wilson today. And he came in to do a job, and people may disagree with this, but his opportunities in front of goal aside, he did a job for the team. Wasn't the greatest job, but he did a job for the team in terms of that. Now, what we want him to do ultimately is to score goals, and he didn't do that. And this is why he needs to be out of the team. And look, Yano just put Wilson will struggle to play at a decent level, and we need to get rid of him. And look, I'll put it out there. I think I've talked about it on shows before. I wouldn't be surprised, not if it's my decision, I wouldn't be surprised if Wilson gets sold in the summer. Because this is Wilson, in my opinion, last season playing as a starting striker. And my argument has always been, Isaac will come in and play number 1 striker next season. But I don't see Wilson playing as a secondary striker. Wilson's not a striker that comes off the bench because he doesn't give you what Isaac gave us today. In terms of that electricness, that vibrantness, that sharp play, the ability to push and press players. He doesn't give you that. And I don't think Wilson will be happy sitting on the bench. So I wouldn't be surprised if we cash in for him. Get our money back. We can still get 20 million for him. Get our money back and go and invest in another striker. Would not surprise me if that happens. However, if we get European football, I think he'll probably want to stay another year. And he'll probably want to stay another year because he'll want to play European football in his career. And if we're playing European football, he will get minutes. He will get games. And he will be happy to play second fiddle to Isaac in the Premier League if he's getting minutes in Europe. And I think that will be the big thing. If we don't get Europe this season, and I don't really want to think about a season with Newcastle not getting Europe, but if we don't get Europe, I do think that Wilson may move on because he'll have a lot of games where he will be just coming off the bench for 20 minutes. And I just think there is a kind of a sliding doors moment here with the likes of Wilson and 1 or 2 others, because Eddie Howe is going to have to start thinking about moving away from some of the players that he knows really well and has great relationships with to actually bringing in players that are going to project him as a manager to the next level.
It's exactly key. We've said this before. We've got to look at people like the likes of Wilson, like Miggy. These are people who are going to be and I hate it because and everyone's got to realize we're not having a we love all the players that were, if people think we're cursed and whatever, we've got to be honest. If we think someone's had a bad game, they've had a bad game and whatever. That doesn't mean we don't think they're a good player. We don't appreciate what they've done for Newcastle, what they're going to appreciate, what they're going to do for Newcastle going forward as well. But what we've got to realize is people like Wilson, people like Mickey, they are going to be the people going forward in this project who are going to end up being the weaker players in the squad. They are going to be the third choice striker, or they're going to be the second choice, right winger, or whatever it's going to be. Because for this project to progress, that's what's going to happen. So this turnover this summer, you're going to see the likes of people like Manquillo, Ritchie, and them lot, and Dummett, all them lot move on. And then what's going to happen is in January, you'll see more go out. And then this time next, summer next year, that's the likes of when people like Wilson, like Miggy, and so they're the ones who could, and then people like some like Shaw and Byrne and Target, they'll be the ones that are probably going to be moved on. But I think what these people are in the first team now, and that's what we've got to deal with until the summer, until we can address areas of weakness, because we can't do what Man City did. We can't do what Chelsea did. We can't just go out and buy a squad. But unless you're Nottingham Forest, you want to go out and buy a 25-man squad. You know what I mean? But we're not in that position where you can't overhaul a team the way where we're going. We are, we're progressing the right way, and we love all the players that have done this season and stuff like that. And it's just, we're being honest. We're not having a go at this player. We're not saying that someone said that Wilson's not a championship striker. We're not saying he's a championship striker. He's an England striker.
No. He's probably
completely out of form. Completely out of form.
No, that championship comment came via Yano in our squad game too. So that's where that.
No, I know it was. It wasn't any of us that said it. I just saw it as a comment saying that he's not a champion. I know we know he's not. He's an England caliber international striker. He's just way off form at the minute. Do you know what I mean? It's and that's all we're saying. What you've got. This is going to be harsh on Eddie Howe as well. He's got the job of his life at the minute as well. And it's going to be hard for him not to show loyalty to players who've got him where he is now. He's at a different stage of his career now, where we're a project moving forward, and he's got to be ruthless now as well, which is something he's perhaps not had to do before. And this is a new area for him, and this is where we'll see whether when he came in, obviously, and a lot of people think that, and I'd like Eddie Howe to be here for a long time. And I think we will would after what he's done and prove, because we know he's a good coach. But at the same time, when you get people who are turned around, if he's going to be blind and stay loyal to the people who aren't delivering for the minute, this is where you'll turn around and say, is he a great coach, or will he ever be a world-class coach? This is where a coach who owns that team will turn around and isn't afraid to drop someone, isn't afraid to change things up if things aren't going the way they need to do. We're at this big transitional moment now, because even now, right, we are ahead of where we were in the project. You know what I mean? Start of the season, we all predicted on the panel anywhere between 10th and 7th. None of us predicted top 6. I said as an aim for like Conference League because of the way we finished on the form last season, and that's still on. Does it mean I would settle for the Conference League football? Idly, not, because we're in this position now where we've played so well this season. We are starting to be picky with little things like today, and again last week against Man United, and against Liverpool with 10 men. We competed against them. We've always said we want a team that competes, and we're all proud of the team competing against these teams. I think what's got the situation now is that we see little mistakes that like today, little schoolboy errors, but giving the ball away a lot, which is that was probably the main issue today. We gave the ball away a lot, and you can't do that against a lot of teams in the Premier League, especially not Man City. And that was our downfall today for especially the second goal. We gave the ball away too easy and got punished for it. So, go on. You've obviously
Jimmy's in the chat. Welcome.
Subtitles from Jimmy, is it?
Jimmy C saying Wilson's a bum. We're not saying Wilson's a bum at all. He is a Premier League striker. But this has always been the question. Has Wilson been a top half of the table Premier League striker? And he's proven that he scored 7 goals. He's got 10 goal contributions this season. It's not been a bad season for Callum Wilson. But Is that what we're looking for in terms of moving forward? If we're regularly fighting for Europe and potentially then moving on to fighting regularly for Champions League, is Wilson what we're looking for? And the answer is, at 31 years old, probably not. And this is where I think we've all touched on the fact that we need we need a regular goal scorer, that one is going to stay fit and one is going to put the ball in the back of the net to take us forward. So for me personally, and I think the other lads, Richie and Daz, have said that, is that we will need to look for someone else, and I think we will. Will Wilson be happy to ride the bench? I'm not so sure. And look, let's put it out there. Would anyone be happy with Wilson being our number 9 starting striker going into next season?
No.
I love Callum Wilson, but I don't think I would be. I think if you're paying 60 odd million for Alexander Isak, you have him as your frontline striker. And someone's put in the chat, I think, Maxi might leave and we play Isak on the left. Isak doesn't naturally play on the left. He is a striker. So Yano put in the chat, we might have to change the way that we play. We are going to have to change the way we play. If you think we're going to play 4-3-3, workman-like, run up and down and combat the opposition for 90 minutes over the course of a full season every year, if you think we're going to do that, no, we're not. We're going to have to change the way that we play. We are part of a transition. The way that we're playing now is different to when we played this time last year. We've already changed the way we played. We're going to have to change it again to get it to a point where we're playing in a way that is going to get us to where we need to get to. But we're going to have to change the way we play by getting players in to change that style of football. And look, Adam mentioned the Magic M as a possibility. And look, I'll talk about Madison all day. He didn't have a great game today.
Oh, here we go. He
looked frustrated. He looked angry today. They obviously lost to Southampton. He did not look like a player that was very happy playing in Leicester City's team. But again, I'll talk about it. I'll keep talking about it until he signs for someone else or he signs for Newcastle. Madison is the type of player that we need playing in our formation. With the type of possession we had today for long parts of the game, someone like him or someone of equal ability could have completely unlocked Man City's defence. We had Darren Drinkle, who gave us a donation to the channel tonight, which I really appreciate. But he tweeted out on Twitter and was quite negative about our assessment of the team during the show tonight. And I've come back to him and I've gone, hold on a second, we're only assessing the team here. The team, he thought that we didn't play too bad today. And I was like, well, I agree with you. We didn't play too bad today, but there are still areas of the game that we weren't good enough with. And we didn't unlock the defence. We didn't score goals. We didn't create enough chances. And there are elements of this game that we need to improve. If we're going to take this right now, what we've got into next season, we're not going to change it for Champions League or European football. We need to make improvements.
Yeah.
We can't just settle for what we're doing right now. We should want to strive to be better.
Exactly.
And nothing wrong with us wanting to be better. Nothing wrong with us. In our assessments tonight, all three of us, I think, have been more than fair and more than respectful to the team. I don't think any of us have been wrong. And to be fair, everyone in the chat has agreed and given their points that are very similar to us.
All of this piece is it's all opinions. Everybody has a different opinion. And to summarize what Richie said and what you have said, I'm going to quote Eddie Howe. At the start of the season, he said, "This is evolution, not a revolution. This is a project. It has to grow bit by bit. We can't just."
As I've already said to you, I still think we'll see a change in formation next year. I still think the way we're playing now is not how we'll play going forward long term.
Lads, let's go to the table. We're on 2 hours, 5 minutes already. We haven't even touched the question.
I know I've just said now I'm going to go 5 minutes. I just didn't realize what the time was.
You're not going. You're not allowed to go, Richie. Right. This is the table. We are still sitting in 5th spot. Spurs have played 2 games more than us. They're 4 points ahead of us. A great result from Wolves today. They'll be up for at St. James's Park now the weekend, which makes it a difficult game. But one we have to win. Nothing else is acceptable for me next weekend. Great to see Liverpool there. Hope in sixth spot. I hope for once I never say this. I hope Man United win tomorrow. But yeah,
Wow.
Fulham.
It's obvious. We do. I'm being honest. We're going to be honest. We do want Man United to win tomorrow.
Yeah, we do.
I'm saying because Dad said it. That's all.
Yeah, I absolutely. Sorry, Saeed, if you're still in the chat. I hate Man United, but I want you to win tomorrow. But yeah, I think Fulham are like they've played the game more than us. They're 2 points behind us. Brighton, who are on form, and they've got they're a game less than us. Look, it's not going to be easy to even to hover around that fourth spot, but a win against Wolves next weekend is where we have to start, and a goal or two to ensure that would be nice as well. Any thoughts on the table, lads?
I think I don't know if I said it on the show earlier or I said to you before we went live there, Daz. It was always going to be a difficult game today, but for me, the expected surprise is that Tottenham's really slipped up at Wolves. That was a big slip up. You know, it's especially with the two games in hand we've got on them. If they'd got a win today, that's we've still got 2 games in hand, but they're 7 points clear. Now we've still got 2 games in hand, and they're only 4 points clear. So it's the ball's in our court still. That's the main thing there. Brighton. They got a good win today, and if they win their game in hand, they'll go level on points with us. But luckily, one of the games in hand that we've got is Brighton at Newcastle. So that's a one good thing. So everything's the ball's still in our court. That's what I think. I think that's why if Man United, we want Man United to win tomorrow, keep Liverpool further away, because obviously if they go above us, but have a game in hand, that's still in our court. To keep Liverpool behind us is a good psychological thing to take into the game next week. So we really, really want Man United, because we're not going to get third now. Let's be honest, lads. We're not.
No way.
We're battling to get that 4th spot, and that's our best goal we can go for now. And I think while it's mathematically still possible, and we've got the games in hand, and we can still turn the season around, then that's what we should go for. So to keep Liverpool behind us and have them a game up, it's a blow to them. And it's a boost for us.
Yeah, we are still we've lost the last 2 games, but we've lost the last 2 games still playing decent football in the Premier League, and that's what I hold a little bit of confidence with. A lot of people are saying, Fulham, Brighton are up there. Brighton have had some great form recently, and they're playing really, really well. They're having a good patch of form, but equally they've had some horrible patch of form a number of weeks ago before that, and where they've dropped points. And I think there'll come a point where they'll drop points again, as will Fulham. I think Liverpool and Tottenham are in and out. They'll have good wins, they'll have bad wins. They drew with Palace. They'll beat other teams. I think they beat Wolves midweek. Liverpool are very hit and miss. Tottenham, I genuinely believe will finish ahead of Tottenham. I really do. And the key to it is because their defence is shocking. The defence is poor. And I do think that we will finish ahead of Tottenham, with 4 points behind them with a game in hand.
2 games in hand.
2 games in hand. Sorry. Yeah, they're on 26. Sorry. I thought they were on 25. And I think it might have been Jordy Team Falatis put Spurs have some hard fixtures coming up soon. We've had some tough fixtures. We've had, like you mentioned earlier on, Richie, we've had Liverpool, Man United in the cup final, Man City. Yes, the Man United in the cup final is not a league game, but we've had tough fixtures to think about. We've got a run of fixtures now, including Brighton and Man United at home. They've got to come to St. James's Park. They've got to come to the Cauldron. And we will always create an atmosphere and a game where they're going to be struggling to get hold of. And I just think we're in a position now where it's still in our hands. It's still in our hands to put it right. And so,
but it has to happen next weekend.
I haven't really looked at the league table recently.
It's got to start next week, yeah.
I don't like looking at the league table, if I'm honest with you, at the moment, because I think it is a false position, not just for Newcastle, but it's not just a false position for Newcastle, but for a number of teams. And you're right in what you said. It has to start against Wolves. And look, Wolves beat Tottenham, but Wolves only beat Tottenham 1-0, and that was with a defence as poor as Tottenham's. Wolves are coming up against Newcastle next week with a defence that is far better than Tottenham's defence. Easily better than Tottenham's defence. At St James's Park. They've got to come to us. Now, the question I've got is whether we can score goals against them. Can we do enough against them? That's my biggest question. If we can, we win the game. And it's the same against Forest. If we can do enough in terms of scoring goals the other end of the pitch, and Forest will give us chances, we will win the game. And that's 6 points on the board. So that takes us up to around the 47-point mark. And I think the 47-point mark in the next 2 weeks could potentially take us back to fourth in the league.
Hope so. Hope it does. Let's see how it plays out. Richie, let's grab a few questions.
If you're quick, because I do say I've got to go pick the pen up.
Pick the best out of the 25-year start.
Not all the same, but right. Harry Robertson this is a controversial one, and I think on this one, I think we all said that this is a no. But Harry Robertson turned around and said, "If we lose to Wolves and Forest, it's a time for how to go."
No, in how we trust. In how we trust.
Harry, no. Let's get away from this Howe out. We want Howe for the long term.
Yeah.
Howe is a terrific coach. And then you know what? Hold on. Just bear with me a second. I'm sorry, guys. I'm gonna put this up just so you can see it. And I saw this earlier and I thought I have to put it up so people can see it. So I'm just adding it to the loaded mag system.
Not Lascelles in, is it?
No, it's Lee's Bowzidi, and he well known for tweeting out. He follows Man City and a lot of other teams as well, but Man City in particular. And he's put, although his spelling's not great, he's put Newcastle are so well coached. Get them some more solution finders in terms of quality attacking players in the final third, and they'll be scary. They work themselves into so many brilliant positions just to be let down by the lack of individual quality. Now, the spellings of what he's tweeted is not great.
Yeah,
but what he's trying to say, and that's someone that's not a Newcastle fan, is absolutely spot on.
Bear in mind, Pete, that's exactly what Pep said after the game.
Yeah.
He said Newcastle will be scary going forward. In the next few years, they will be winning trophies and they will be competing at the highest level and causing umpteen problems for the teams up there.
Jordan tweeted it out, and I think I quote tweeted it tonight. Exactly what you've just said, Richie. You're absolutely right. Pep is absolutely right. Leas is absolutely right in terms of what he said. Once we get those solution finders, is what he said, in terms of those attacking quality, those ones that can break the lines and those ones that can create those moments for those attacking players, we will be up there challenging. There is no doubt about it, because the structure of the way in which we play is fantastic. We had nearly 400 passes away at Man City today. I would love for anybody, Statman Keith, if you're in the chat right now, if you're watching, I'm gonna message you separately. I want you to find out how many other teams have had nearly 400 passes in a game at the Etihad this season. I can guarantee you there won't be too many more than what Newcastle had today. I think we had 387, something like that, at the Etihad today.
Bear in mind, we probably would never have got over 100 a few years ago.
Exactly my point. So it's progress that's being made. We weren't great in areas, and we've touched on that today, because, look, we lost the game. We're not going to talk about everything positively, but there were lots of positives. The times that we had on the ball, the little corners and triangles of passing was absolutely spot on. And yeah, he will be painting his fence, but we've given him a task as one of the loaded team, and he will find the answers. There's no doubt about it. But I'll be really interested to see how many other teams have had as many passes in play over the course of 90 minutes against Man City compared to what we had. And I think it was about 387, so just under 400 passes that we had over the course of the game. And bearing in mind, up until they scored their first goal, Man City, we had 91. And then we became a different team. So I think Man City had
Steady on, Michael.
I think they had 500 altogether. We
No.
had just under 400. So actually, the amount of passes that the team had over the course of 90 minutes was just over 100 passes difference, which is not a lot considering they're the home team.
Richie, 1 down, 24 to go.
Sorry.
No, I'm waiting to hear them. I'm going to leave you with this one because I do have to go, but it's a good talk point.
No, you're not going.
I am going. Right. And the only reason why I want to bring up this one next is because Jordan Brentwall put in the chat, and it's literally because, he's got his own opinions, as I've said. That's what you do. We talk on here, we have opinions and stuff like that. And he's said, are we on drugs? We are not getting top 4. What the fuck are the goals coming from? The goals will come, right? But what we're saying is, we're not saying we're definitely going to get top 4. What we're saying is we are in the mix for top 4. That's what we're saying. We're not saying we're going to get the end of it. At this moment in time, the ball is in our court that if we wanted to, if the results go the way we want to go, we will get top 4. That's the way it is. If the ball goes the way, if we keep playing like we are now, no, we won't get top 4. But if it's the end of our blip and we win the next 2 games, like Peter mentioned before, and we're on 47 points, that's a big turnaround. That's a bit more momentum swing in our favour against Tottenham, against Liverpool, against Brighton, and all that sort of stuff. But the thing is, though, that feeds us on to the next question by Michael Pormar, and he says, what is the lowest position now that would be acceptable for you? Before the season, I said 13th with no relegation battle. Not sure if we have, after the start we've made, that would be good enough. Now, for me, I said at the start of the season, the way we finished, I always thought that 7th, 8th was a realistic goal. I thought that Conference League spot was something we could really, really focus on, and that would be perfect for progressing the project in a reasonable manner. Do you know what I mean? We're talking like we finished the second half of the season, the 5th in the form table for that calendar year. So for me, that was a realistic target. Would I be happy with it now? Yes, we've still got European football. Would I be disappointed finishing 7th? Yes, because of where we are now. That's the only difference. I'd still be happy we've got European football, but it's not like we're 10th now and we're still aiming to get 7th. We're in 4th, mathematically with a chance of qualifying for the Champions League, which we haven't been for years. And that'll be the icing on the cake with a cherry on top. But do you know what I mean? It doesn't mean if we finish 7th, I'm going to be disappointed because that's where I thought we would be at the start of the season. I'll be a little bit. You know what I mean? I think we were where we're coming from. So, but look, I'm going to have to go, lad. I really, really have to go.
You're not going. You're not going, are you?
I am going to have to.
We're already starting.
Right.
Richie, fair play to you, at least you turned up.
Yeah, I'm not sending voice notes on the toilet to tell you how bad the curry was.
No.
That's an in-house joke.
Who's done? Come on, you've got to out that.
I think you've mixed 2 conversations there together.
Richie. No. We know what that person's like. You've had a few more to drink. We're probably getting into what will happen, Daz.
Right, that's
I'm intrigued.
yeah.
I'm intrigued now. Who's had a curry and who's on the toilet right now? That's what we need to know, loaded chatters. That's what we need.
But they don't want it's on us 3. Unless one of us is sitting on a commode while we're doing the show.
No.
Oh God, Richie.
Game.
Seriously, lads.
You take care of it. I'm Inspector Morse is on the case. Inspector Morse is on the case.
Richie left on that note. Interesting.
This has been to the game. Martin has been with the family. Who's had the curry and been on the toilet?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a story that's been mixed up there. Okay. But let's move on. Let's go to Saeed's question. Yes, boys. Bit disappointed in how seems very stubborn now. Bruno, since World Cup has been off, Isak has to start. Well, I agree. Isak has to start. Bruno, since World Cup has been off, he came back from World Cup okay. Then the course the dreaded the sending off in the cup game and missed the 3 league games. Take a while to come back. Then it's the injury to his ankle he's had is now kind of tricky. He does seem frustrated, as we touched on, and it's the whole talk of contract in the background, and his name is being mentioned to clubs as well. how, and the other part that I'll take before I go to you, Pete, or Said, how it seems very stubborn. He is a bit in some sense that he has kind of some favorites that he's reluctant to drop at times, and but that has to change come the summer, and then there has to be a big clear out, and the likes of, like, we don't need Richie on the bench, we Dummett in the squad, Lewis, and so there's a good few more, but yeah, not dropping the Wilson. I would have gone with Isaac today, as you said earlier, but yeah, this I know you say you're coming from a kind of outside looking in as well on that one. I do the same, talking about Man United.
No, it is. I know Saeed does a lot of stuff about teams outside of Man U, with regards to just general football. So, and I know he did a watch along with the Man City Newcastle game today, Newcastle United game
Okay.
today. So that's why I think he's got that opinion with regards to how. You know, if you're an outside fan looking in, and even if you're a Newcastle fan, you are going to be a little bit thinking, you know, you are being stubborn with regards to this, but. We've already touched on about how and some of his selections. Bruno, I don't think has been as bad since the World Cup. I think he's been injured more since the World Cup, which has hampered him. He's had a couple of more injuries than we would have expected to. Not to mention the 3-game ban that's affected him. There's no doubt about that. So I don't think it's been necessarily Bruno's performances. I think there's been a number of factors that have affected him showing his best ability. I think if you'd have had Bruno available for the last 3 games, if you'd have had Bruno available for Bournemouth, Liverpool, and the other game, I can't remember the other game that he missed. There was the 3. There was Bournemouth. What were the 3 games?
Liverpool.
There was Bournemouth, Liverpool, and there was one other that he missed. I can't remember what it was, but he obviously missed those 3 games because of the red card. Now, if Bruno had been fit for those games and available for those games, you probably would have seen a different performance. You would have seen a different Bruno, and I think people would have had a different opinion. And I think, West Ham. Sorry, thank you, William Smith. I think you'd have seen a different viewpoint of Bruno Guimaraes. So, but I agree with him. I do think Isaac has to start. So Saeed is absolutely spot on with that. Some great opinions as always. And,
there's some more, because there are not an awful lot of questions as such. It's more so comments as well. Like we're agreeing with what Saeed had said about blind loyalty and starting Wilson and Byrne regardless, from Kinsey. But let me see. Jump onto one there, Pete, if you see something that takes your fancy in the chat. Yano's one here. I would. This is a strange one, Yano. I would not be going this direction. Why not go for a trip down memory lane and play Murphy and Richie as wingbacks, given that our central defenders are much better now? Yeah, no, sorry, Yano, not for me.
No way. Those guys are the 2 players that you probably want to move on in the summer, let alone give them a start. That's for sure. So yeah, not for me. But Clarkie's put in. We talked about the passes today in the game, and I just want to confirm, Clarkie, in the chat, you've put City had 539 passes. Are you saying that Newcastle was 466 completed passes, or was that just referred to City as a whole? Because if that's 466 passes from Newcastle, that's more than I expected. That's more than the 387 that I saw at the late part of the game, that I saw on BT Sports. So they might have got it wrong, or they've just not got the final figure of the amount of passes that we made. So just let me know with regards to that, because that's really interesting. And actually, some people have said, I think, like Joe Linton, who always likes to have a different spiel on things. Joe Linton in the chat has put, so the passes are going to get us Champions League. No, they're not. They're not going to get us Champions League. But what they show is that we're in games for a lot longer spells than what we were previously, like Daz said, under Steve Bruce. So it shows progression in the way in which we're playing. So from my perspective, that does show progression there.
Question here, Pete. Sorry,
from-
is one from Dom, and this is a interesting take. I do think if we don't get a couple of good results in the next two games with Wolves and Forest, some questions need to be asked of what's happened. Fair enough. It is. I think our in the season it hinges on these next two matches coming up, because I think we play Man United then again or something close enough to that. But so yeah, we touched on it during the show. But would you start to worry, worry for the future if the next two results we don't get a change of fortune?
No, I wouldn't personally worry for the future. But what I would say is, I would, I think, I'm not saying that I would, but I think questions will be from the media asked to Eddie Howe with regards to what's going on. I think some questions have been asked already to him about the form of the team, and he almost said in his presser on Friday, it's almost. He's almost been quite honest and said, the cup has been a distraction, been an open distraction getting to the cup final. And I think he's been honest with that. But the cup final has been and gone. We've played Man City, which is also a big distraction because it's a big game away at home, away from home. I think at this point, then, if you don't get wins at Wolves and Forest away, Wolves at home, Forest away, I think questions will naturally be asked. What's going on at Newcastle? And I think that would be right to ask those questions. I'm not saying it's right to question Howe or to consider his management.
Yeah.
No way. He's the manager for the long term, in my opinion. No doubt about it. But questions will be asked of why there's been such a drop-off, in my opinion.
I think so too, and I like the question from Harry earlier. He's not the only one putting that question out there. We had the one about from Lascelles in, how out Lascelles in as well. Took from Facebook. So there's if we were to lose those next two games, I think there'd be more and more starting to question things. All right, but I agree with you, Pete. No, how his position is secure and what he's done this season already, and into next season. But yeah, we just need to have see something. Look, I'm gonna go in with this one. I've two left. I want to go to, but a change of formation. Eddie might go 4-2-3-1 with J7 out, so Wilson still might be. Yeah, play Isaac behind him, or like he's done before. It's anything is possible, I guess. And one I wanted to go to as well. I know you might want to go to something as well, Pete, but from what was pretty early in the night, for 8:05. Good evening, everyone. Today's outcome was predictable, but surely our season can restart next Sunday. Yes, it can. That's the attitude we want to be going into to this week. Our season, our season really starts again, on next weekend. Top four is by no means impossible. No, it's not. It's getting more difficult, but it's not impossible. We just have to find a way of scoring goals. Yeah, completely agree with what John Askew has said there.
We're only 4 points away from top four.
Yeah.
And Tottenham losing games today only helps us still be in the race. It's not the worst thing in the world. That's for sure. I'm just going to be back in 1 minute. So I don't know if you want to go to sponsors.
I'm going to go to sponsors. Yeah.
A couple of questions. No problem.
I'll go to sponsors, and we'll come back for one more correct question then.
Yeah.
Cool. No problem. Just one sec. Just read of that. So just a shout out to the sponsors. Shout out to. I'll have to put myself in jail in a second. TheRadiatorShed.com. Right. So TheRadiatorShed.com. You know the story here already. Russ. Plenty of radiators. If you need radiators, there's only one place to go, and that is theradiatorshed.com. And if you need to get those radiators installed, then StoreWorks, Russ's other company, will sort you out there as well. And you've seen the fabulous range that Russ is available. They are working on a showroom. Must be nearly ready now, Russ. You'll have to let us know and give us some new pictures on that. He wants to try and rival our other sponsor, linked to Russ as well, is H2O Bathroom Design Co. So the Northeast largest supplier of Velcro embossed bathroomware. Team Valley Gateshead, over 20 years established, run by the family. Get down to the showroom on 11th Avenue, Team Valley Estate, Gateshead. So yeah, if you're looking for a bathroom, there's no better place to look at those pictures. We're always marveling at those pictures. So that is our shout out to the sponsors. Coming up on Loaded as well, we might have other shows in between, but I took a guess. I haven't consulted with Pete on this, but I imagine we'll be back with the way it is probably towards the end of the week. And I am guessing it will be with Little Dan, and I think this is the right channel. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. That will come towards the end of the week with Away Days, and of course at the weekend we will be back with a reaction show as well. So keep an eye out, and you never know, something else may drop as well. There's a possibility as well. I must consult with Pete. With possibility we may be on with Paul tomorrow. We're going to kickstart again the collaboration sessions, so keep an eye out for that. That is really it for the night. If Pete is coming back, we might have a last question. If not, I'm going to say good night to everyone. He's back.
Sorry.
Anthony, do you want to round off the night with Pete before we go?
There's a few. Well, I mean, firstly, I don't know if you mentioned it, but Clarkey came back with the Newcastle passes. So he put 410 passes with 321 completed. So thank you for that. Gives us a bit of an idea of Newcastle's passes. I thought the completed were a little bit higher than that, but I think maybe the overall passes were 387 from when I saw it during the game. So no, that's an interesting one. But in terms of Newcastle, I don't want to kind of sit it on a negative, because we've got.
And we ended on the positive. We ended already, and it's like everything is building up to next weekend, and that where our season can hopefully restart. If it doesn't restart and we're to lose next weekend, it could be a bit more negative then. But I think look, we weren't expecting an awful lot from the City game today. I know I wasn't. But yeah, let's go.
Mr. Lanzi has put. Is it a drop off, or has teams just learned how to play against us now? What do you think, that's?
Bit of both. Like we know, we've been saying it for a while. We know if you close your eyes, you know that the move that's going to happen. Trippier, maybe try to cut it back to Bruno if he's there. But and there has been a bit of a drop off. It was, I suppose, the cup run as well. Even Eddie Howe said it in his press conference before this game, was about that the cup kind of distracted people a bit. They weren't trying to, but naturally it did. It disrupted the rhythm a bit. So it's a bit of both.
And last one, really, for both of us, William Smith, do you worry at all about how being in charge of the summer window, with him supposedly liking players like Dominic Calvert-Lewin and McTominay? Now, I have seen Daz, and I know we're not in, thankfully, right now, because I don't think I'm ready for it. We're not in the fully loaded transfer show mood just yet, but I have seen links with Newcastle again with Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Now, like,
why? That doesn't make any sense. You know, I even thought about this as well, and I thought, is that going to come up? Let's say if Everton did get relegated, still don't want him. Still don't want him at Newcastle, even if we got him at a bargain, even free transfer. Still don't want him. No, not for me. Just not good enough for me. And even if we were to, you mentioned selling Wilson there as well. If that was to happen, we'd need to go out and buy 2 strikers. Still don't see him as the Newcastle player.
Yeah, no, I agree. Clark's always injured,
Yeah.
which you're absolutely right.
Why get rid of Wilson for that? Like, doesn't make any
Exactly.
sense.
Who would you rather? Would you rather Wilson or Dominic Calvert-Lewin? I know who I want. I think it's a no-brainer.
And this is Wilson playing, giving him 2 weeks in a row 5.5, and it's still rather Wilson.
Definitely. And look, just to end it, would I there? Let's put Manchester against Newcastle United about to start on match of the day. I'm sorry. There's many other things I'd rather watch right now than watch that again. I've already watched it twice. I don't want to watch it a third time. I'd rather focus on, like Daz has just said, I'd rather focus on the games that are coming ahead. Wolves next weekend, Sunday, massive fixture. The lights will be on St. James's Park Sunday. Cannot wait for Newcastle to come out and finally, hopefully, get 3 points.
You know what, Pete? On that note, we won't end on the how, even though we're still back in anyhow. All of us are. But we're going to end on the blinding lights, and to look forward to next week against Wolves. Good night, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and like button as well. Take care.